So did Justin Trudeau's wife leave him for the same reason Bill Gates' wife left him? We'll have to see here coming up in just a little bit. This is the Morning Buzz. I'm Kat Peterson. Yes, Justin Trudeau and his wife, they split. They announced their separation. He announced it on Instagram and he said, Sophie and I, we would like to share the fact that after many meaningful and difficult conversations, we've made the decision to separate. So we're going to be talking about that here on the Morning Buzz. Plus, Obama, he's worried. He's sweating. He's wiping the sweat off his brow. He's stressed about President Donald Trump. He expressed worried. He was worried about President Donald Trump and his political strength during a private lunch he had with Joe Biden. They're freaking out. Yes, Obama has a good reason to fear Donald Trump's abilities. And, one thing I want to point out about Jack Smith, this isn't the first time that he's gone after a Republican presidential candidate. This isn't the first time. They drag Jack Smith out there whenever they want to go after their political opposition. We're going to get to that here coming up in just a bit. But after confirming Joe Biden had met with Devon Archer around 20 times, Tucker Carlson unveils a never-before-seen letter from Joe Biden to Devon Archer, clearly establishing Biden's intimate knowledge of his son's foreign business dealings. Let's take a listen to Tucker Carlson. And I love how Tucker Carlson gets these interviews. He gets these interviews before the mainstream media is dead. And especially Republicans, we need to start embracing alternative media, going to the internet and watching things like Tucker on Twitter. Let's take a listen to his exclusive interview with Devon Archer about Joe Biden's intimate knowledge of the foreign business dealings surrounding his son Hunter. Here we go.
Strategic advisory, and then kind of some type of coalescence around having a private equity fund that would have this unique access and understanding of a regulatory environment in DC. Again,
got it.
To be clear.
How many times do you think you met Joe Biden during the course of your relationship with Hunter?
How many times? I should have this off the top of my head since I've been asked so many times. Probably same thing, 20.
So I got one last question for you, and we'll do a much longer interview and get the entire story. But we found this letter, kind of amazing. It's from January 20th, 2011, which I think puts you in your late 30s, mid to late 30s. Right. Okay, so you're a younger man. This is from the Vice President of the United States, Joe Biden, to you personally, and it's personalized here at the bottom. Devon Archer, Rosemont Seneca Partners, that was your partnership with Hunter Biden in Georgetown. Dear Devon, I apologize for not getting a chance to talk to you at the luncheon yesterday. I was having trouble getting away from hosting President Hu Jintang, who was running China at that point. I hope I get a chance to see you again soon with Hunter. I hope you enjoyed lunch. Thanks for coming. Sincerely, Joseph R. Biden Jr. P.S. Handwritten, happy you guys are together. So there are many levels here. But here's the Vice President of the United States saying to you, a man in his mid-30s, who's not a government official, I'm sorry I was occupied with the guy who runs the world's largest country. I would much rather talk to you and thank you. What was he thanking you for?
Well, first of all, it's a lovely letter, and it was...
It's quite enthusiastic. It's a little weird, though, right?
Yeah, well, it was kind of the beginning of our partnership, and he was thanking me and thanking Hunter, I think, at the end of the day, for bringing this idea of this government regulatory strategic advisory business into the private equity world. And I think he was excited about the prospects for Hunter, and, he was just thanking me. I think it was a nice gesture.
It was a nice, for sure. For sure. Very polite. It gets a 10 on the etiquette scale, but he's a vice president of the United States, right, and he's talking about foreign business deals with you and thanking you for that.
I think, again, it goes back to my earlier point I think I hit the jackpot in finding the regulatory environment or company that can navigate right to the top. But, obviously, as time was told, being a little bit too close to the sun ends up burning you.
For sure. And it did you, and
Absolutely.
you suffered greatly for it. And this is not a criticism of you. I would think as a business guy, you use every advantage. These are not business guys. This is the vice president of the United States. He's not allowed to be working on businesses with foreign governments while he's vice president. I don't think.
Not that I know of.
But here he is.
Right.
Amazing.
Here he is doing just that. Yes, I know that was a longer clip for you, but that was, of course, Tucker Carlson revealing here this never-before-seen letter from Joe Biden to Devon Archer. And what that letter did, it clearly shows some sort of established, intimate knowledge of not only his son's foreign business dealings, but Devon Archer's business dealings, and that he had some sort of role in those business dealings, and he was thanking him. So, damning letter and a damning interview that Tucker Carlson did. Like I said, we are going to be getting into Sophie and Justin splitting. Justin Trudeau, he announced their separation, and Barack Obama expressing worry that President Donald Trump's political strength is going to be too much for Joe Biden. He expressed this during a private lunch with Joe Biden. So, yes, Obama, you've got a very good reason to be afraid. But first, let's get into it. I want to talk about this social worker who got blacklisted for criticizing Dylan Mulvaney. And what this social worker did, her thought crime here was wondering aloud how someone without breasts is going to be able to sell sports bras. So she got fired from her job. So we're going to be talking about that. Plus, police arrest a teenager for reading the Bible in a park. Okay, that doesn't sound exactly right. People arresting Christians for reading the Bible. Well, because he was reading the Bible in a park near a drag queen event where, you had grown men gyrating in front of young children. Because he was reading the Bible in the park, he was arrested. So a little bit later, I also want to talk about the murderer on the run. From what I understand, he's still not been caught. And I think that this should be the lead story in Illinois. We have a murderer on the loose. He is a suspect for stabbing his ex-girlfriend. And he's on the run. And get this, he's a DACA recipient. Okay, so DACA recipients also just recently became available, or recently became they're allowed to become police officers here in the state of Illinois. I've got Twitter evidence. I've got a tweet from Governor J.B. Pritzker saying that he's proud that he signed a bill to make it to where DACA recipients can become police officers. Well, this fellow here, he was a DACA recipient. He was known to the DHS. And he stabbed a woman. So is he going to get to be a cop? Or are people like him going to get to be cops? All right, we are going to be getting into all of that. Let's first file this story under Pay Attention America. Okay, so first things first, I want to talk about this social worker. We'll get to this story. But this takes place in the UK. I'm going to file this story. I like to do this. File this story under, hey, America, this is coming to your back door. This is going to happen to you if we continue the path we're going down. So this took place in the UK. It's a future that Dylan Mulvaney has explicitly said he, she, they, whatever, he said he wanted for the country. Okay. This is explicitly what he has stated he wants for the country of the United States. A social worker has been suspended and blacklisted from work over having criticized Dylan Mulvaney's authenticity of being a woman. So the story thickens here. She's a lesbian. She's a social worker who's a lesbian. And especially now in the UK, lesbians are ranked much lower on the leftist most marginalized ranking scale. They're actually ranked lower, if you didn't know this, in the UK, the lesbians, they're ranked lower than the straight white men who virtue signal about being trans allies. So if you're a lesbian, you're all the way down here. And that straight white guy who's, a trans ally and, backs the trans movement, he's way, way, way up here. So her name is Louise Shivers, and she was a social worker with 25 years on the job. Then one day, during what I'm assuming to be a conversation with her coworkers, Dylan Mulvaney came up. So Louise called Dylan a misogynist who mocks women and wondered how a skinny gay man with no boobs could be selling sports bras. So she was having thoughts about Dylan Mulvaney, and apparently that's a crime. You may not remember this, but Dylan Mulvaney, like an ambassador for Bud Light, was an ambassador for Nike, and he pranced around in some sort of sports bra. Highly offensive, very offensive. Because Luis was having some thoughts and expressed those thoughts aloud, she was told by the agency that she relies on to find social work that she will no longer find her job. And they're no longer going to provide her social work because there's a full investigation of her scandalous comments, and it has to be conducted first. So there has to be an investigation done. So Louise, what she does, she tells the Telegraph, it's clear what's going on, and that because she is gender critical, she's being blacklisted and slandered as transphobic. So, quote, on this particular occasion, we had been discussing gender neutral toilets, and I said I wasn't comfortable using them because statistics show that women are 8 times more likely to be raped in one of these gender neutral bathrooms. And she goes, then I said I would struggle to buy Nike clothes anymore because I didn't agree with Dylan Mulvaney advertising sports bras because I thought it made a mockery of women. What is happening to Luis is exactly what Dylan Mulvaney wants to happen in America. He has said that very, very publicly. And in fact, I think in Michigan, you can't misgender someone. If you use the wrong pronouns, I guess that's considered a crime and you can be locked up. And look, Dylan wants thought crimes like those committed by Luis to be illegal and not just grounds for termination from your job, but he wants those to be illegal and for you to be locked up for having thought crimes. Joe Biden's favorite internet personality, that's true. Dylan Mulvaney met with our president. He thinks that it should be illegal to call someone the wrong pronouns. By wrong, I of course mean what Dylan thinks is, the correct pronoun, but just not the pronouns Dylan would prefer to be called. So he wants you to be jailed if you say the wrong pronouns, but what he thinks is wrong is actually correct. He just prefers you not to use those pronouns, okay? So if you call him and not they, then he wants you to be locked up. It's unclear if Dylan wants you to be arrested or to be hit with a significant financial penalty. He has come out on the record. I wouldn't doubt he would want you to be locked up. That's what they're doing in Michigan right now. Well, not officially locked up, but issued very hefty fines, financial penalties if you use the wrong pronoun. And look, when I first came across Dylan Mulvaney's videos, I thought he was making a mockery of women, actually. Like, I thought he was some straight dude who was making fun of women, and he was dressing up and he was parroting, like, doing some parody acting about what he thought girls acted like based on his hatred of girls. And apparently that was not the case. He is actually like some sort of like he's some sort of guy who believes he's a girl and pretends to be. So I can't think of an example in America just yet. In Michigan, you do get some sort of fines. There's some sort of legislation out there that they're trying to push. I don't know if it got passed or not, but if you use the wrong pronouns, then you are issued some sort of fines. Right now, I can't think of any example in America where if you criticize a TikToker, you get fired or suspended from work. But getting arrested for reading the Bible, yes. So far, I have not seen anything about you getting fired for criticizing some sort of TikTok influencer yet. Yet. But this day's still young, folks. So who knows? Maybe by the end of the day, somebody here in America is going to get fired for saying that Dylan Mulvaney for criticizing Dylan Mulvaney. All right, I'm going to be back, and we are going to be visiting with a very special guest. I am live in the studio. You guys can see me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Rumble. I'm there. We're also going to be visiting with a special guest. His name is Ray Estrada. He's running for Congress. I want to consult him here because he is an immigrant himself, and I want to consult him about this DACA recipient who is on the run right now. I think he's been on the run for 3 weeks. I haven't seen that we've caught him yet, but he murdered a Springfield, Illinois girl. So we're going to be talking about that story here coming up in just a bit. Stay tuned. I'll be back. Hey, are you watching right now? If you're watching, go ahead and smash that like button. Illinois girl stabbed, a DACA immigrant on the run. Yes, we will be visiting with Ray Estrada. Ray Estrada is running for Congress. I believe he's running against Eric Sworenson in the 17th congressional district. We are also going to be talking about Eric Sworenson. I haven't been able to catch up with Ray, but there was this Washington Examiner article done about Ray Estrada. And Ray Estrada is kind of in some hot water because of his social media use. And share this out with your friends, folks. If you're watching right now, please share this out with your friends. I would greatly appreciate it. This is the kind of content we need to embrace alternative media, not corporate journalismers, not the mainstream, not what you see on television. Okay. We need to be embracing this type of media. So, this House Democrat, Eric Sworenson, who represents us in the 17th congressional district, was hit with an ethics complaint over his social media use. So, he's a freshman House Democrat. He was recently elected. I'm going to take a sip of coffee here. And by sip, I mean gulp. So, he was a freshman Democrat and he's violated federal law due to his improper usage of Twitter. So we have the Foundation for Accountability and Civic Trust. This is a watchdog group, and they are demanding that the Office of Congressional Ethics, an independent and nonpartisan body, review the misconduct allegations against Eric Sworenson immediately. They want him to be investigated. They say that he has abused official resources for political purposes by using the Twitter account for his campaign to post content from his congressional office and the House floor. Yes. So, according to this ethics complaint, this was obtained by the Washington Examiner. It says that the legal violations related to Representative Sworenson's case are obvious and nothing can excuse them. These resources are not given to members to campaign for their own personal benefit, and it is concerning anytime taxpayer funded resources are abused. So, Sworenson, a former weatherman, he's the weatherman, guys. He was elected in 2022. He links on his campaign Twitter account to his official social media account. So the Congress campaign account, as of this writing, also has pinned a tweet linking to all of his official accounts for social media. So it's very important, and you'll see this with a lot of politicians that they use different social media accounts. They have to use a different one for their campaign, and then they have to use one for their official office because the official office, I'm sure that they have like some sort of social media budget or something, and that's all paid for via taxpayer dollars. So he's campaigning essentially from his office Twitter or from his office ran Twitter. Hmm. Yeah, so we're gonna be talking with, Ray Estrada about that, plus this story about the immigrant who is on the run now for 3 weeks, stabbing this young girl out of Springfield. Her name is Emma Shafer. She was a left-wing activist. I don't know how she met the fellow. I think that it should be noted that she did deliver groceries for the Immigration Springfield network or something like that, so she was working with immigrants a lot of the time. This guy is a DACA recipient. He obtained DACA recipient status as a 15-year-old, and, I mean, this is not his first run-in with the police, okay? There was another girl who he kidnapped. I'm assuming it's a different girl in 2017. He got those charges pled down, never served time. And he was known to the DHS. He was apprehended by the DHS, actually. And I don't know how in the world this guy did manage to get out. So he was in the hands of the DHS in 2021. So, and then he filed some sort of habeas corpus saying that, his rights were violated and that should, um, give him the ability to be released. And it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare that this guy was able to be out and about, not only to kill this woman, stab her, but to take pictures with our Democrat Senator Dick Durbin. He was out there and he took a photograph with Dick Durbin and said, "Thank you for all you do for the immigrant community." And to me, I mean, this guy shouldn't have even been here on the DACA recipient program. I don't know if he managed to, I mean, it expired in 2019. I don't know if he managed to get the expiration looked at, but he was here in um, the country. Oh gosh, what day or what year was it? Oh, he was 15 years old and he got onto the DACA program. And from 15, on, I think he was trying to renew this DACA recipienthood, and he was here on that program. The reason why I bring this up today is because Governor J.B. Pritzker has tweeted out that DACA recipients are now allowed to be police officers. Here we had a DACA recipient, young DACA recipient, who was going through all of this mental turmoil and was clearly a dangerous guy. Um, and we knew nothing about him really. So I asked Governor J.B. Pritzker, is somebody like that going to become a police officer? Is there a real way of trying to make sure that that doesn't happen? Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. We will be visiting with Ray Estrada. He's running in the 17th Congressional District. And of course, we know that the weatherman is in that district, Eric Swarnson. He's the Democrat. And folks, Eric Swarnson is in a bit of hot water because the Washington Examiner, they published this. They said, House Democrat hit with an ethics complaint over his social media use. So we're going to walk this out. Apparently, he violated federal law due to his improper usage on Twitter. According to this watchdog group, it's called the Foundation for Accountability and Civic Trust. And they are demanding that the Office of Congressional Ethics conduct some sort of investigation to get to the bottom of how he is abusing official resources for political purposes. So it's very, very much important that we have separate accounts. If you watch politicians, they'll have separate accounts for their campaign and they'll have another account for their office. So Governor J.B. Pritzker has a couple different Twitter accounts. It's because the office of the governor has to run a social media, and there's likely funding that comes from the taxpayers that goes to that marketing fund or to the office of the governor social media account. People who run it, right? People who have jobs and have to run the governor's social media page and presence. And you cannot abuse taxpayer money when operating these social media accounts. So joining me here to talk a little bit about it, Ray Estrada. He's running in the 17th Congressional District. He's joining me now. Ray, thanks so much for joining me here on the Morning Buzz. We haven't talked in quite some time, and I just was telling our listeners a bit about this abuse of really of official resources, I guess. And can you walk this out for me, Eric Swarrenson, who you're actually running against up in 2024, right?
That's right. Good morning, Kat. Good
Good
to be
morning.
with you again. Thank you for inviting me. Uh, that's true, and I am not surprised whatsoever. We have to keep in mind that Eric Sorensen is not not much more than a leftist activist. That's it. That's his job. His job is not to uh, go ahead and take part in governance, in trying to do something good for his district. His job is to go ahead and please his immediate base. That's it. So actions like this, I'm not surprised whatsoever.
Right. And can you kind of walk this out? Like, so what were his actions exactly? Do you happen to know? Is it he's kind of using his office, the office of the 17th congressional office? He's using that office to campaign. Is that's his camp?
Yes,
His
the complaint, it's going on right now. But that's basically it. I mean, he's using resources that belong to everyone, all taxpayers, in order to promote his campaign,
Mm,
his agenda, not
mm.
to not for government issues, not for government reasons, but his personal reasons.
Mm. Yeah, and to me, that's just we had a problem here with that a little bit. We had a referendum. It was a tax referendum for the Unit 5 schools. People will remember this, where you had the school actually campaigning for that issue inside the school during band concerts and things like that. And there was a big issue. There was even a police report that somebody had, and this is like electioneering almost. So if you're using your Congress, official Congress, Twitter to kind of campaign or even just to post what you had for lunch that day. You're kind of misusing these official resources given to you to just disseminate information to people in your district about what you're doing there and why we should keep electing you, right? Maybe talk about some legislation, talk about something going on in the 17th congressional district, what you're doing there, how you're voting, things like that, is what I typically see from an official Congress account. But he's posting about what he had for lunch. He's posting attacks against Republicans. I saw there was one kind of tweet where he posted a picture of a bunch of empty seats saying Republicans left.
Yes.
One morning, and I was just like, "Wait a second, why are you posting about that on your official congressional account? You're like using this to attack Republicans." It kind of seems like a poor use of the account. So I thought it was interesting. I do want to shift gears on you, Ray Estrada,
Okay.
but I'll let you respond with Eric Swarrenson. Anything more?
Well, no, what you're mentioning, I think, it's interesting. And like I said, I'm not surprised. What you mentioned about him tweeting, what he had for lunch or what he had for dinner. I thought honestly that it was disappointing even for him to be doing this. I saw a tweet that he's talking about having a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for dinner. And I said, you got to be kidding me. I mean, get to work. I mean, there are people driving right now listening to your show, Kat, and they're looking at their gas tank, worried about, the high prices that they have to deal with. And I'm thinking, this guy is tweeting what he had for dinner. And it's like, who gives flying?
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
Get to work, buddy.
Yeah. It almost reminds me of that, Democrat. There was some sort of Democrat representative where he was tweeting out that he was on some sort of, fast. He like fasted for 9 hours
Yeah.
or didn't drink water for 9 hours. And it's like these people are so out of touch with the people, the Americans, Illinoisans. He's out of touch with them. And it almost reminds me of a story. And before we move on, I want to point this out to listeners. We did this story back in 2022 when Eric Swarrenson was running. So he's a congressional candidate, and he tweeted out that all high-speed trains run entirely on wind energy in the Netherlands, and he said all of this, but he failed to mention that the passengers of public transportation pay hundreds of more dollars in fares than they do than their counterparts in the United States. So the Netherlands, they've got this public transit going on, and they pay extreme amounts in fares uh, to ride these high-speed trains. And I wanted to point that one out, but also in that story, there was Eric Swanson who came out and he said something about a Draco, and he was very much like I'll have to look up the story here. Insensitive, I guess, when it came to this Draco tragedy. So he was trying to fundraise for his campaign based off of this tragedy. He had posted something. He tweeted that 2 years ago, a Draco moved through the Illinois 17th congressional district. It was one of the costliest thunderstorms in United States history. It's time to put the first meteorologist in Congress in nearly 50 years. So he was using this tragedy that people went through. It was one of the costliest storms. It was a Draco that hit Illinois and back in 2020 with winds 70 to 115 miles per hour. And almost 700,000 Illinois residents were left without power, 1.4 million in the region. I mean, this was a huge storm. And he's almost campaigning off of their tragedy and saying, hey, yeah, it sucks that all this happened to you, but put me in office because I'm a weatherman. It's just like examples like that just show us that I'm just going to say it. He seems uneducated, or I'll go as far as to say not so smart. I don't think he's smart enough to be a congressman, to be honest with you, Ray.
That's right, Kat. And if you, excuse me, if you stop and think about that for a second, and everyone listening, this guy, the way that he comes, the way that he always talks to everyone. Number one, like if everyone, it's not smart, and then he puts himself as if he's some scientist. This guy is a weatherman. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
So at best, he's half right half the time. And the way that he portrays himself, about science, and it's like, Eric, buddy, you're no scientist. You are used to reading, teleprompters in a studio. He's not the guy analyzing the satellites from NASA. And yet he somehow tries to convince everyone, because he's a weatherman, that he is able to go ahead and represent, not only represent, but serve and do good for his district. I have yet to see him put any legislation that would actually make any difference to anyone in his district, much less Illinois or the United States. What is he doing in foreign policy? What is he doing about trying to bring down the cost of gas, of groceries? What is he doing about that? What is he doing about securing what's going on at the border?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. In fact, he voted against it. So this is basically like an artist, let's say a showman. That's all he is.
Yeah.
And he got lucky, and I think it's a historical accident, actually, that he got elected. And talking with friends, some Democrats, they were surprised that he won. No one expected this guy to win. But somehow he won. So now we are going to make sure that next time around, he's not going to win, that he will, pack his bags and leave Washington, D.C.
Yeah, I hope so too, Ray. And you brought up something about the border and Eric Swanson, his voting record with the border. I'm sure it's dismal. But there's a story that I shared with you. And we kind of looked at the court documents here at Cities 92.9, and we saw this story for what it is. It's a murder suspect, and he's on the run. I contacted the Springfield police to see if they've apprehended him, and they haven't gotten back to me. So I'm assuming, there's nothing that indicates that he's still not on the run. We had U.S. Marshal Service looking for this guy. He's a murder suspect. He allegedly stabbed this young girl. It was an ex-girlfriend of his in Springfield. His name is Gabriel Calixto, and he was actually a DACA recipient, and he received this status at 15. It expired in 2019. I don't know how he was still here. He had so many run-ins. This wasn't his first time with run-ins with the law. He was no stranger to it. He attended college, maintained employment, but in late 2017, he began struggling with mental health issues and attempted suicide. And in fact, in 2018, prior to his DACA recipienthood expiring, he kidnapped a girl and was sentenced to 6 years in the Illinois Department of Corrections. He got it pled down of a lesser charge and was resentenced back in 2020 to time served. So he didn't serve the entire 6 years. But this guy managed to stay out there after kidnapping a girl, having all of these problems. His DACA, the DACA program, his recipienthood expired. Somehow he was still here. He was in custody in 2021. He was in DHS custody. I don't know what happened. Now either they deported him and then he walked right back over the border, or they released him. Now, from the last court documents that I have in my hands, he tried to petition some sort of habeas relief on the grounds that he was denied his constitutional right when they apprehended him back in August of 2021. So, I mean, you're an immigrant, right, Ray, and a legal United States citizen now?
Absolutely. Have been for quite a while. Those stories are very painful, Kat. I can say I mean, law enforcement can only do so much. I served. I'm very happy and proud that I gave 8 years of my life serving, with the Knox County Sheriff Department as an auxiliary deputy, then sergeant chief, and then chief of the auxiliary deputies. There's only so much, excuse me, that law enforcement can do. They'll go ahead. We'll get the bad guy, but then you have this corrupt system with leftist prosecutors who let these people go. Now that's a symptom of the disease, which is this leftist agenda. It's in their benefit to create chaos. This guy, look, like Donald Trump says, he believes in legal immigration. I mean, at some point, everybody was an immigrant. My wife, she's second generation immigrant from her mom's side. They're from Norway. But this whole process that you will go ahead and arrest a criminal, and then they go through the system, and the system, unfortunately, is designed, that system anyway, that is governed by the left, to go ahead and release this guy. And then you have victims like the girl that got killed. How is that? I mean, how can anybody make that right? One of the things that is very upsetting when I hear Biden saying, well, they're going to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars to those families that the children were allegedly lost. I think that's horrible. But then think about this. How much money are those parents of victims of criminals like that, who have no regard for the rule of law or the sovereignty of the United States, that committed crimes and had their kids killed? What's going to be the reparation, I guess, process for those families? And some of those families are also immigrants that had their children get killed by criminals coming across that are not being vetted, criminals that coming under the radar.
Yeah. Or, even the DACA recipienthood. So he was 15 and he obtained this status, right, under the DACA program. And, to me, I will go as far as to say, and I don't know, maybe stop me, Ray, if you have a different opinion. DACA is almost like child trafficking done by the United States government. There's no reason why we should have a 15-year-old boy here on some sort of DACA program without parents. Of course, he was here, obtained that status, and then just a couple of years later started experiencing suicide attempts. He started acting out. He started and he kidnapped this girl, and it's almost like they want this to happen. And like that system in and of itself is going to breed criminals when you have a 15-year-old here all by himself on this program. And if his parents got deported, I think that's what DACA is. It's like the kids get to stay.
Yes.
But it's really funny because the average age of the recipient of this DACA program status is 29 years old. And it's for deferred action children. So it's a childhood thing. And they're actually giving this recipienthood to grown men, military-aged men. And
Yes.
they're continuing to stay here past, in this example, it expired in 2019. I don't know if he got it renewed or what, but I mean, they stay past the time. It's the whole program needs to be dissolved because to me, it looks like human trafficking, child
Yes.
trafficking.
You know what is in, Kat? This is another example of programs that are being done or were done by the left. Obama knew that that program was not constitutional. He knew that. But he also knew that by doing this, he would go ahead and accomplish two things. One, in his mind, the delusional thought that if you do this, somehow the Hispanic community is going to go ahead and vote for Democrats. That trend has been shifting greatly.
Mm-hmm.
The other one, because it will go ahead and cause more division inside the United States. That somehow, if you ask questions, now you are a racist. Everyone has a right to ask questions and also to disagree. The goal of the DACA, I think, was very political, very selfish, and very intentional as far as wanting to divide everyone.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like the thing with the student loans. This guy Biden knows he cannot do it, but he's doing it anyway to somehow portray to everyone, look, we care, and the Republicans do not care. They're very masterful at deceiving and causing arguments and division within everyone. The whole idea, the whole issue of immigration, look, Obama had the supermajority. They had Congress and they had the White House. They never resolved anything because it's not beneficial for them to resolve anything. They always need a victim at the expense and to the detriment of all other American citizens who are working and paying their taxes. And if they complain, they are racist. That's obviously nonsense.
Yeah.
And as far as like you were mentioning, child trafficking, unfortunately, that is a cold reality. And they know it, but they don't care. Because to them, the political capital that they're getting from this, it's worth the sacrifice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. And to see this all kind of play out, and you mentioned, voters, they thought that maybe somehow they could get voters. I mean, if you get a 15-year-old in here and you, give them, resources or anything like that, it's almost like they're trying to breed Democrat voters through this DACA program. That's exactly what Gabriel was. Gabriel, this murderer, alleged murderer, he was a community activist, and he was a left-wing activist. He even has a picture with our Senator Dick Durbin, and he was a Democrat. And I mean, his ex-girlfriend, whom he killed, was a Democrat activist, and she met him through a program. I'm sure, I don't know exactly, but I mean, she was delivering groceries for the Immigration Network out of Springfield, and like, let's put two and two together. I mean, did they meet through this Democrat activism? And it's a bizarre thing. And Ray, we do have to take a break, but tell us where we can find out more about you and how you're running for Congress in the 17th district here in the state of Illinois.
Thank you, Kat. Go to rayestradaforcongress.com. Please go ahead and go into our website, follow us. And I also want to take this opportunity to ask you guys support our campaign. We need a special kind of candidate to beat Sorensen. I believe I am that candidate. I will tell you that we need to win elections in order to make any changes. And that 3-4% that we keep losing elections with, we are going to pick that up now. I can say that the Hispanic vote is changing, is trending now more conservative, much more than before. I will make sure that we have that as well. So please go ahead and try to support our campaign and donate anything you can, even if it's $5. It doesn't make any difference. But I hope to serve and represent you guys, everyone, in the 17th in Illinois and in the United States as well. But anyway, we'll hang around here after the break.
Yep. Thank you, Ray Estrada. Okay.
It's very unfortunate, Kat, what's going on with that. I mean, I feel very sad for that girl that got killed.
Okay, Mr. Ray Estrada. Okay, we're back. And we're here for the live stream, folks. If you're watching on the live stream, go ahead and smash the like button. Now, Ray, before we come back for the air here, we've got somebody in the buzz line. They're saying, I'm tired of paying for abortion. So recently, and I know this is a state issue, SB 1909, it passed where the Attorney General in the state of Illinois can fine or shut down even pregnancy resource centers. So, question: pro-life candidate, is Ray Estrada a pro-life candidate, and what would you do in Congress for life?
Hello, yes, Kat. I am pro-life. I have 4 beautiful children, and recently 1 granddaughter. Unfortunately, as you mentioned, now this whole issue, well, in Illinois anyway, we are up against a wall. I mean, we have, a very much so-called pro-choice committed governor, and also in Springfield, the majority is being held by the Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I can tell you with all my heart, I am 100% pro-life. Now this has been shifted to the states, and I think if we need to change it, we need to win elections. And I think everything is cumulative. We need everything that we can do. Nobody wants to be paying for abortion. I can tell you through my foundation, we have been helping families. I mean like single moms, that went ahead and had their babies, and also women protection centers here in Knox County. And then you have people that are paying their taxes, and they can afford to pay their grocery bills or their gas for their vehicle because they're supporting this radical leftist agenda, the thing that they can have abortions at 9 months. So I think we have to work hard here in Illinois to get a conservative governor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's it, because it's up to the states at this point. There's only so much you can do as a congressman if you were to be a congressman. Now, one thing I also wanted to ask was about the Safety Act, and I know that's another state issue, but you had mentioned your service as a sheriff's deputy, a volunteer
Yes.
sheriff's deputy.
I was.
We are coming back to the radio here in about 30 seconds, so I'm going to hold this, folks, but when we come back, we're going to talk about your experience as a sheriff's deputy and what happened to you as a sheriff's deputy, a volunteer's deputy. I mean, from what I understand, a lot of those volunteer sheriff's deputies, those departments dissipated because the Safety Act. Now, I'm not sure exactly what was in the Safety Act that made that a reality, like made that happen. But we'll talk about it here in about 30 seconds. Just hang out one sec, Ray.
Out of the mud and ponds when the rain comes. With over 55 years of experience, you can improve the curb appeal of your home when you go to McLeanCountyAsphalt.com.
Woo! Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. And coming up in just a little bit, we'll be talking about a teenager who was arrested for reading the Bible in a park near a drag queen event for children. So we had men shaking their body parts in front of children, and this young boy was reading the Bible in the park, and he was arrested for it. Yes, it happened here in the United States. I can't believe it. But right now we've got Ray Estrada, and he's running for the 17th Congressional District against Eric Svorensen. Right now, I don't think you have any primary challengers, Ray. So one thing I wanted to ask you was about the Safety Act, which is a really hot issue here in the state of Illinois. You were a volunteer sheriff's deputy, and did your department kind of dismantle itself after the Safety Act was deemed constitutional by the Supreme Court, or what happened there?
Yes, Kat. Unfortunately, yes. Our division, the auxiliary deputies, we had to dismantle it. And it's a shame because we provided thousands of hours every year that we did ride-alongs with our, other deputies. We used to go and pick up prisoners at the jail and take them to the hospitals. We used to assist in security details, the other sheriff deputies. When this law came out, they basically demanded that everyone should take the same training, go to the academy as the regular deputies. Well, the people that are doing this, I mean, they have families, obviously, as well, and they have to work because as an auxiliary, you don't get paid. I mean, you still go ahead and put your life on the line, but you don't get paid. So obviously, the auxiliary department couldn't exist. And that's unfortunate because it helped quite a bit, I think, our department here. But, that's another blow, I think, on law enforcement in Illinois.
Now, Ray, we are taking a quick break, but we're going to be back here on the other side. We're going to take a break for the radio friends, but we're going to continue our conversation on the live stream. Radio friends, head on over to the live stream for exclusive content. We're going to unpack the Safety Act a little bit more with Ray Estrada. Keep it right here at Cities 92.9. All right, Ray. So sorry. I know it's the radio world where we have hard breaks and stuff. And but you were telling me about the Safety Act. So tell me a little bit about that provision within the Safety Act. What made it so hard for the volunteer sheriff's department to stay afloat or anywhere in the state of Illinois?
Yes, it made it impossible for us to continue. What I wanted to say also, when people have the idea that because you're an auxiliary deputy, they just basically, you just walk into the sheriff department and say, hey, give me a gun and I'm going to go ahead and have the power of arrest and I'll be going, patrolling. That's not how it is. I mean, even as an auxiliary deputy, we still had to go through a lot of training, firearms training. We still had a lot of classes to take about public safety. We had to go and qualify and re-qualify for taser, for our duty weapon, and spend, like I said, thousands of hours a year. The total hours donated by the auxiliaries. But when this bill came out, it demanded that we go basically to the academy and go through the whole courses. And obviously, the auxiliary department is set up, and it's the whole purpose of it is to alleviate some of the burden from the other deputies while not breaking the bank. The amount of money that we saved the next county through our service, I'm sure by now it's millions and millions of dollars in overtime that they didn't have to pay the other deputies. And also, I would say I'm sure we saved many lives as well by being with the other deputies. I remember more than once we had to go into places that we thought there were some bad people there. And, we had to go literally guns drawn. And that's a side of this thing that, a lot of people don't realize. I think it was very unfortunate what Pritzker did. But again, it's part of the same, leftist agenda. That's a reality. People think it's a conspiracy theory. It's not, guys. The left does want to create chaos. It wants to create resentment. It wants to create division. And this is just another testimony of that.
Now, I'm curious if there were, I think I've talked with Darren LaHood before about this, if there's some sort of way to fund our officers in a federal way, using federal dollars, or kind of support them from a federal using your power in Congress to help police officers here in the district, the 17th Congressional District. Ray Estrada, he's running for that district, folks. Is there some type of way that we could do that and kind of circumvent what's going on with Governor J.B. Pritzker?
Whatever way, if there's a chance that I can be of service, to that, I will 100%. I am extremely pro law enforcement. I think this guy, at best, they make a modest living and they risk their lives for us. The issue with the Safety Act, unfortunately, it wasn't about the funding. It was about the policy and the rules that have been changed. So that would have to come from the state of Illinois to go ahead and allow, basically, the county sheriff's department, for example, or even regular police departments, to go ahead and have this the auxiliary force. Now, some people, what they're doing, they will allow these forces to exist, Kat, but they are not allowed to carry a gun. Now, very well the hatred by a lot of people, towards law enforcement. So we decided it's too unsafe for us to be wearing a uniform and be unarmed. So unfortunately, it wasn't about funding. It's about policy.
Yeah.
Now, I do believe that law enforcement needs and deserves to have more resources. So in any way that I can to serve and to go ahead and get money, funding, well deserved by law enforcement, especially here in our district, I will definitely go ahead and be there for them and have their backs, have their six, as we say, law enforcement, and do what we can for them.
Well, thank you so much, Ray. We're hopping back on, so I'm going to have to go. We've got to move on to the show. I got a couple more guests, but Ray, thanks so much for joining me here on the Morning Buzz. And again, folks, go check him out on social media. It's Ray Estrada, running for the 17th Congressional District. You have a great rest of your day, Ray.
Thank you, Kat. Thank you very much. And yes, please go to rayestradaforcongress.com. We need everyone's help. I'm putting myself out there, very proud to do so. but we need to do this together, guys. So please go in there and try to help us out. God bless. Thank you.
God bless. Thank you, Ray. All right, folks, we're going to come back for the radio folks, and we're going to be talking about this kid who got arrested for, for simply reading the Bible in a park. Good morning. Hey, folks, this is the Morning Buzz, and welcome back. We were talking with Ray Estrada, and we had exclusive content on the stream. If you missed it, I'm so sorry, but he was telling us about the Safety Act and about his time as a volunteer sheriff's deputy and what happened after the Safety Act was deemed constitutional by the Illinois Supreme Court. And Ray Estrada is running for the 17th Congressional District. I highly recommend you go check him out. Let's talk about the police arresting this teen for reading a Bible in a park. Okay. And you're like, wait a second, Kat, that doesn't make sense. Why was he arrested for reading the Bible in the park? Well, just so happens that he was reading next to some drag queens who were gyrating in front of children for this drag queen event that was going on. So we'll talk about it. Also, a little bit later, I do want to unpack this murder suspect on the run. He was a DACA recipient. And as Governor J.B. Pritzker recently tweeted out, and he was having some beef with Ron DeSantis, he said that Ron DeSantis wasn't smart enough to be president. There's a lot of reasons why I don't think Ron DeSantis should be president. However, him not being smart enough is not one of them. Ron DeSantis pointed out that we are now allowing illegal immigrants to become police officers. Now, when I say illegal immigrants, it's not really illegal immigrants. They're non-citizens, so they're not United States citizens. There are ways for you to be a non-citizen and legally stay here in the state of Illinois and in the country. So DACA recipients would be one of those types of people who can apply to become a police officer. So I find it interesting that we have Governor J.B. Pritzker out there touting this fact that he signed the bill that allows non-citizens to become police officers. And he specifically points out in his tweet here that DACA recipients can apply to become police officers. And I have a DACA recipient here in the news who is on the run for 3 weeks now for stabbing a young girl. So my question to Governor J.B. Pritzker is, okay, DACA recipients can become police officers. Can DACA recipients like Gabriel Calixto, who stabbed this young girl out of Springfield, Illinois, can he become a police officer now? So we're going to talk about that here coming up in just a little bit. But first, let's talk about the police arresting this young teen. So this is a blatant violation of the First Amendment. It's very clear that this is against the First Amendment. This video has gone viral. It's coming from Wisconsin. He's a Wisconsin teen, and he was reading the Bible in a park. So it seems innocent, and it makes you wonder why he was arrested for reading a Bible passage, a couple of Bible verses, right, in the park. And it turns out he was reading the Bible in a public park where men dressed like Barbie dolls or brat dolls, and they dressed like these really skanky-looking women, and they were gyrating in front of children. So the young man was arrested for sharing the Bible on a public sidewalk. He was on a public sidewalk in the park. And I have to share this with you because it could happen to you. It could happen to you. A blatant violation of the First Amendment of the Constitution. Every one of those cops that arrested him, that cuffed him, that took him away, they need to be fired. They need to be sued. Let's take a listen here to the viral video that shows this young boy getting arrested. Here we go. I'm going to play this here for us. If I can get it pulled up. Yes, we're going to try to get this pulled up for you. That's interesting. So I'm going to have to try to figure out where to get this from because the tweet has been taken down. Sorry, guys, this is in real time. This morning at about 6 a.m., I was able to pull that tweet with that video, and Twitter suspended it for some odd reason. That's interesting. You're just gonna have to take my word for it. There was this viral video going around. I would have loved to shown it to you, but I guess Twitter took it down for some odd reason. I wonder why that is. Oh boy. Wow. Incredible. So Jason Storms, who is actually recording the video, and nobody was hurt in the video, folks. So sometimes Twitter, what they like to do is take things down and they'll say that, oh, this is somebody being punched in the face. And that's not right. What happened was this kid was uh, taken and he was cuffed and he was dragged away after reading a Bible verse on a public sidewalk. Uh, so, I mean, this is disappointing. I can't even pull up the video. I'm gonna have to try to find it somewhere else. But Jason Storms is the kid who recorded the video, and he told a news outlet. It's called the Republic Centennial, and he told this news outlet, per the orders from city leaders, people were arrested for praying and talking to attendees of this family friendly sexual cabaret. So it was this family friendly drag queen event where they were singing and dancing in front of children in essentially what were thongs. Um, Grown men in thongs gyrating in front of children. Now, one was arrested later in the day for preaching on a public sidewalk outside of the venue and is being charged with unlawful use of sound amplification because they had like a little um, speaker and they went out there and they started preaching on the sidewalk. People do this all of the time. And they said that it was an unlawful use of sound amplification and he was resisting arrest. Now, that's somebody else within this group. There was a few young boys there. Jason Storm is telling this publication that, hey, it's not just the kid who was reading the Bible. There were other people arrested. So a few police officers were on duty to protect this performance, I guess. So they were already there and they were protecting this performance where men were dressed like Bratz dolls and they were gyrating in front of young children. Um, Now, two things that we need to know. Performers dressed in lingerie were dancing and gyrating in front of children who were invited to give them $1 bills. So these drag queens, drag queen store, all of it, right? You can see these at the drag queen events. They solicit dollar bills. I've seen it in downtown Bloomington several times where children go up to these drag queens and hand them $1 bills. I have a video on my phone right now of that happening in downtown Bloomington. And number two, what we need to know is sexually explicit conduct in front of minors is illegal according to Wisconsin law. So you can't be sexually explicit in your conduct in front of children. So Marcus Schrader is the guy who got arrested for spitting out some Bible verses. And he said not only would he do it again, but he would do so with great aplomb. So he would do it again, but he would do it with great honor. Marcus did after being arrested. So he says, quote, if the police wanted to try and set an example for others or something like that, only thing I've seen is that the exact opposite is happening, where more and more people are seeing the severity of what's going on. And there's being more called to action. There's more call to action happening. So in April, a certain Canadian politician, Justin Trudeau, he wanted to create these buffer zones. And I think that's what's going to wind up happening here for these drag queen story hour or drag queen events. There's going to be these buffer zones that make it illegal for citizens to criticize these men or to counter protest these men who are dressed as women performing in front of children. And they're performing really for the enjoyment of these adults who enjoy watching men dressed as women perform for children. So don't forget about those people, these sick people who enjoy watching grown men prance around in a thong as a woman and gyrate in front of children. There's people, adults in the crowd, who enjoy watching men do that in front of children. Don't forget about those people because those people are sick and we can't forget about them. So what Justin Trudeau wanted to do is make a buffer zone. So you have to be like 50 yards away or something like that from this drag queen event that's happening. We already have something like that in the state area in the United States. there are buffer zones for Planned Parenthood. So apparently you can't go and protest a Planned Parenthood. You have to be 50 yards away from a Planned Parenthood if you want to protest. Otherwise, you're in violation of some sort of federal law, which is ridiculous to me. Now, this is now the second story in this country of somebody being arrested for quoting the Bible. The last one was in Pennsylvania, where police arrested a man for saying God is not the author of confusion. Pay attention, America. Pay attention. Pay attention. This is, I mean, probably the worst story you're going to hear today. So I don't know what's going to happen to Marcus. I don't know what's going to happen to his friends for preaching and for reading the Bible in a public park. It just so happened that there were drag queens there, and apparently they got arrested. They weren't acting violently, and I wish I could show you the video, but they took it down. Like, I was there this morning. I swear I pulled it, and I tend to do this where, if something like that, and I knew it was going to be taken down. I had a feeling it was going to be taken down, and I was like, should I screen record it and keep it in my personal archive, or should I just keep the link? And I was like, well, let's just keep the link. I'm running short on time. I should have screen recorded it. We'll see if I can't find the video somewhere else. But that video that I had specifically pulled was taken down. So I do want to get to this DACA recipient who's on the run. This should lead the news. I haven't seen anybody in the state of Illinois, any kind of major news outlet cover this. I think that this is big enough to be national news here, especially considering the way Governor J.B. Pritzker tweeted out about how DACA recipients can now become police officers. My biggest concern is that DACA recipients like Gabriel Calixto, who's wanted in connection to the death of Emma Shafer, is going to be able to become a police officer in the state of Illinois now because he signed this bill into law. So he's a murder suspect, and he was a DACA recipient. He was granted this DACA status at the age of 15, and it was supposed to expire in May of 2019, according to some 2021 documents, where he was trying to fight to stay here in the country. Now, I have no idea if they wound up, he was in possession, or like he was in the DHS's possession, like he was in custody. Calixto was back in 2021. I don't know how he got out of custody. If he got out of custody, I don't know if he got deported, then came back to the United States between the time period of 2021 and 2023. But somehow he was able, whatever the case is, it's because the border's open. He could have walked right back in after they deported him. But he was, in DHS custody after he had obsessive and threatening behavior towards a former girlfriend. So this wasn't even Emma Shafer. I think this was somebody else. He kidnapped this woman. He pled guilty to kidnapping, and he was sentenced to 6 years in prison. Now, he didn't serve a whole lot of time. He only served a couple of years. He didn't serve the whole 6 because he had pled guilty to a lesser charge of unlawful restraint, and he was resentenced to time served and was released in 2020, October of 2020. And he complied with the conditions of his mandatory supervised release. He was allowed to stay here in the United States. He was a DACA recipient. He kidnapped a girl, and he was allowed to stay here in the United States after that. He was imprisoned. I mean, the moment he did that, why in the world was he sent to the Illinois Department of Corrections? He should have been deported. I don't understand. So then, I mean, he had a federal charge of improper entry back in 2021. There was a detention hearing back in 2021. And he filed for some sort of habeas corpus. He said that he was denied his constitutional right to due process in this immigration proceeding because the burden of proof was was improperly placed on him to demonstrate that he would not be a present danger in the country. So he wasn't supposed to be here, folks. I don't think he was supposed to be here, but somehow he managed to commit a crime, allegedly in 2023. He's a suspect of this crime, and he's on the run. I've contacted Springfield police to see if he is still out there, if they've got him apprehended. From what I understand is that he's still on the run, and he's allegedly stabbed Emma Shafer. So Governor J.B. Pritzker yesterday, Ron DeSantis, he tweets this out. He goes, "To the left, citizenship is meaningless. Illinois is now letting illegal aliens become police officers. In Florida, we took action to combat the harms of Biden's border crisis. And we also value our citizen officers who serve and protect our communities." So this is what Ron DeSantis said on Twitter. So JB hits back and he goes, "This man isn't smart enough to be president. Get this. I proudly signed this bill allowing legal permanent residents and DACA recipients. So they're non-citizens. They're legally here. DACA recipients. There's other kind of work visas that that you can be on to serve in Illinois and their communities as police officers. So there you have it, folks. My question to JB would be this: people like Gabriel Calixto, known to the DHS, served time in prison, right? I mean, between the time period of him committing this kidnapping, and after, I mean, he was in some sort of DACA program. Would he have been able to become a police officer in today's Illinois world, where we have officially made it law to where DACA recipients can become police officers? Would he have been able to become a police officer? Because I don't know about you, but I don't want people like Gabriel Calixto policing my streets. He's wanted for murder. He's on the run. All right, I do have to take a break. We'll be back. Now, a couple of things I do want to run through. Barack Obama, he's scared, folks. He expressed that he's worried. Why is Obama worried? Is he worried Michael's going to leave him? No, sorry, Michelle. No, he's worried about President Donald Trump and his political strength. And he expressed this to Joe Biden during a private lunch. So I'm going to be talking about that here coming up in just a bit. You're listening to The Morning Buzz. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. If you are watching, go ahead and smash that like button. I would greatly appreciate it. What are your thoughts here about Gabriel Calixto? I mean, I just find it so incredible that this guy, and it just goes to show you the dangers of things like DACA, the dangers of things like these immigration programs. And to be honest with you, I think that this DACA program is straight up human trafficking. So here we have Gabriel Calixto. I didn't get into everything, but he obtained the status through the DACA program as a legal citizen. I gotta turn this stuff down. He obtained the status at the age of 15, okay? And he was given DACA recipienthood until May of 2019. Okay, so he was a 15-year-old. And then, obviously he has probably no family, nobody here. He's the whole purpose of the Deferred Action for childhood arrivals. Let me just read what this program does. Um, it was created to protect eligible young adults who were brought to the United States as children from deportation, to provide them with work authorization for temporary renewable periods. So you can renew your DACA program status. But he was a child, so 15 when he was granted this status. And I don't know if he renewed it, but he was granted it. And, I don't know if he had his family with him. I have no idea. But to me, this Oh, no audio. Shoot. Here I am talking away, and it's just like, wow. Okay, thanks so much. I've got my button pressed now. We're going to be back. But I was talking about Gabriel and Calixto, and, he was known to authorities back in 2017. Okay. Um, and he was released. We're going to be talking about that, but first I do want to get into Obama and how he expressed that he was worried about President Donald Trump. Here we go. Good morning. Hey, I'm live in studio, YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, Twitter. You can find me. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media. The morning buzz. I've got so much to get to today. We were talking about this social worker who got blacklisted for criticizing Dylan Mulvaney, and she wondered aloud how someone without breasts was able to sell sports bras, and her thoughts are made a crime essentially, and she got blacklisted. She was suspended from work. Now this took place in the UK, but I'm using this story and I'm filing it under "Pay Attention America" because it's coming to you. It's coming to your backyard. If Dylan had his way, he would make it to where it's illegal to misgender someone. It's illegal to even criticize someone. So this woman was fired for criticizing Dylan Mulvaney's authenticity of being a woman. So, and then I just got done with this story, the Bible in the park. He was reading this Bible, this Wisconsin teen, and the police arrested him. And I had the viral video showing the police officers arresting him. I saw it this morning. It was taken down from Twitter for some reason. I don't see why. There wasn't a whole lot of like violence happening in the video. It was just more so it was just him reading the Bible verse and then the cops coming and arresting him. It looked really bad. And now the video has been taken down off of Twitter. I'm not shocked by that. Now, one thing I wanted to get into was Obama and how he has expressed some worry about President Donald Trump. So, one thing that you need to know, this is not Jack Smith's first rodeo here. He has gone after Republican presidential candidates before. Jack Smith is the goon that the Democrats call up. They're like, Jack Smith, we know you have no shame and you are willing to take this all the way up to the Supreme Court because that's what's going to happen, folks. This judge is a leftist judge. She's an Obama appointed judge, and she's going to be looking at Donald Trump's case here regarding January 6th. They're trying to say that Donald Trump is to blame for everything January 6th, which makes absolutely no sense. The real reason why January 6th happened was there was pervasive censorship and it was systemic. And when you silence people, they react in certain ways. Okay. When you tell them that they can't scream, then they're going to scream. If you tell them they can't scream, then they're going to start to burn things down and tear things down. That's just the way history has gone. Human beings do not like to be censored or held captive. Okay. It's in our nature. And that's why January 6th happened. Donald Trump did nothing wrong. In fact, I've got clips of him saying, look, go and peacefully protest, go and peacefully and patriotically protest and have your voices be heard. So Jack Smith, this is not his first rodeo. He has charged people before and has indicted people before who have run for president, Republican presidential candidates. This judge is going to probably convict Donald Trump. Now, what's going to happen from there, it's got to go up to the Supreme Court, which I'm sure, unanimously, I don't know if they would do it or not, but the Supreme Court probably would shut this down and say this is ridiculous. The point is, that's not the point. The point is to tie this up through the election. They want to keep this tied up until the election, until 2024, November 3rd. They want to keep him in court. They've got all of these different indictments strategically. He's dealing with something in Fulton County, Georgia. He's dealing with the Mar-a-Lago documents. He's dealing with Alvin Bragg in New York. They've strategically timed all of these different indictments to try to tie Donald Trump up so that way he can't run effectively. This is just election interference. That's what they're doing this all for. So Obama is expressing his worry about President Donald Trump's political strength during this private lunch with Biden. Biden has Biden and Obama have good reason to be afraid. So it's been revealed that Barack Obama voiced concerns over the popularity and strengths of fellow former President Donald Trump during a private lunch with the current commander in chief, Joe Biden. So Obama allegedly warned his successor at a June 27th meeting in the White House residents that Donald Trump wielded more political power among Republicans and their supporters than many on the left have cared to admit. So that's true. Obama, private lunch, two people familiar with the meeting told the Washington Post that Obama cited the 45th president's devoted fan base, uh, apparent control over the GOP, and increasingly pro-Trump conservative media ecosystems as causes for concern going into 2024. So they're freaking out because the mainstream media is not going to be able to manipulate the public anymore. We have Tucker on Twitter, which has surpassed the numbers of Fox News. Fox News, I mean, they're even stressing out and they're trying to get Donald Trump to get on the debate stage. They want eyeballs on their screens and they're begging Donald Trump. They met the executives and stuff like that with Donald Trump in Bedminster, his golf course there, and they were trying to get Trump to come to the debate stage because he said that, no, I'm not going to participate in your mainstream media debate. No. And good for him. But they're freaking out because the media isn't going to be able to control the narrative anymore because we have independent thinkers like Tucker Carlson on Twitter and like all of these different conservative media ecosystems, our own Cities 92.9. There's a reason why the Washington Post came here to Bloomington Normal because we're doing something different, and they're worried, they're stressed. Governor J.B. Pritzker is stressed. So he reportedly expressed his faith in Biden's political abilities and vowed to help him in any way possible to ensure Democrats emerge victorious when Americans head to the polls next November. Now, according to the Washington Post sources, the meeting was not called to discuss the issue of Trump in particular. Rather, it was a simple, uh, regular catch-up lunch for the two political pals. Obama has good reason to fear Trump's abilities. Poll after poll shows that he is the front runner. Not even close. Ron DeSantis trailing by dozen of points. In a recent poll, Trump has 54%, and we have DeSantis at 37%. So, I mean, the hypothetical matchups between Donald Trump and Joe Biden have shown that that Trump is coming out kind of ahead of his successor. It's close. I won't lie to you. It is close. These matchups between Trump and Biden. Now, Obama was quite active in the lead up to 2020, accompanying Biden on numerous stops during the campaign trail. So he's going to break out the Obama when it comes to this 2024 campaign. They've already broken out the Joe's a family man liner, but now they're you know that like break glass in case of emergency. Now that's what they're doing with Obama. We have to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to talk with Scott Robbins for Scott's Takes. Plus, Justin Trudeau and Sophie Trudeau have announced their separation. Oh boy, that's a little bit later in the 8 o'clock hour. Plus, Darren Bailey, who's running for Congress, will be joining me in the 8 o'clock hour. He's going to discuss things about his run for Congress, but also about immigration, DACA recipients now becoming police officers. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that with Darren Bailey. But next, it's Scott Robbins. Good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. Justin and Sophie, they've announced their separation on Instagram. He announced it. He goes, Sophie and I would like to share the fact that after many meaningful and difficult conversations, we have made the decision to separate. Scott Robbins on the Morning Buzz. Your reaction to this little love fest breaking up? I'm heartbroken.
I mean,
Not really, I don't
Justin
care.
Trudeau's a nut. I mean, he's a whack job. He's not even a good guy. I mean, he's Fidel Castro's illegitimate son. We know this, right? Again, that's been whispered for years now. That Mama had a couple of run-ins with Castro, and it resulted in Justin. But the guy's, I mean, he's a communist, and it's who he is. But I'm watching some of the news stuff this morning, and also going through videos and things. His wife that he's separated from now is a nut. I mean, she makes this guy Trudeau look like, Ronald Reagan.
You almost called him.
I mean,
Castro.
I almost called him Castro. I'm used to that because that's what David Van Camp does all the time, little Fidel.
Mm-hmm.
But he, and I'm thinking to myself, my gosh, man. I mean, she's way further than the left than he even is.
Mm-hmm.
They played a clip that I saw on one of the news sites this morning from her being interviewed by Meghan Markle. Wow. There's much listening. On some podcasts, I didn't even think they had a podcast anymore, neither one of them. But at any rate, going on about, LGBTQ and all these far left rights things, and it was just like, my God, well, I wonder if it was him or her who infected whom. And it's been my experience, Kat. And again, I could be totally wrong on this. I've got a couple of my male friends who were just normal dudes who saw the craziness in politics and would vote accordingly. For the most part, were conservatives because that's the way they were brought up. That ended up with a woman who was far, far left, and they became that person. All of a sudden, I don't know who the hell they are anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
They took on the identity of that person. I've always wondered. I don't think it works necessarily with women, with men to women. I think it works more with women to men. And I don't know if the guy's just happy to be there and he'll take on anything he can to keep it. I don't know. I don't know how that works. But I'm thinking to myself, was Trudeau always this nuts, or was this part of the process? I don't know. But anyway, now we got some scandal that he was with a teenager. Is that correct?
Yeah. So the Buffalo Chronicle, they came out with this headline back in 2019. Trudeau is rumored to be in talks with an accuser to suppress an explosive sex scandal. So, this girl was underage. The Buffalo Chronicle came out and said, at the time in 2019, 2019, they said she was 17. Now the Buffalo Chronicle has come out and said, actually, she was way younger than that when the relationship started. So he had to leave this teaching job at West Point Gray Academy after having a sexual relationship with the student. So now it's coming out that she was way younger than 17.
Yeah, I suspect there's more to the story, and we'll learn more as time goes on. It's sad anytime people break up. I mean, after a long-term relationship, you got kids and all this, and I'm upset about that. But man, holy smokes. Ooh. So anyway, we'll find out a lot more moving forward. This is kind of interesting. I read this article today in Red State, and a guy named Andrew Clark put this together. It's a timeline, and this is pretty incredible. When you look at this, and when you look at what's going on currently with the Trump and the indictments and all the malfeasancies, I mean, everything seems to drop right around the time Joe Biden's got himself in a political, problem. Mm-hmm. Case in point, 317, Hunter admits laptop. 318, Trump indictment news. 68, FBI document alleges Biden bribe. 69, Trump indicted. 728, Hunter plea deal collapses. 727, Trump indicted. 731, Devin Archer testifies. 8-1, Trump indicted. Coincidence? Anybody? Doesn't sound like it, does it?
It's a curious coincidence, for sure.
It's a very curious coincidence if you look at it like that, right? I mean, this is really something. When you lay out that timeline, you forget, because it seems like Trump's indicted every other week for something, right?
Oh, yeah.
And every other week we hear the walls are closing in and this is different than the rest. They've really got him this time. And it goes on and on and on, right? And every time it follows, it seems to follow news about malfeasance with Biden and the crime family and all that other nonsense with Hunter and who knows what. So anyway, it's interesting to follow this. But this guy laid out a nice timeline. Thank you, Andrew Clark, for that, because that was pretty interesting. Also, I don't know if you've noticed or not, but gas prices are going way up again. Have you noticed that, Kat?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Where's
gas
Sharon
prices
Chung?
are.
Come on,
Can I
Sharon.
tell you I'll tell you what's going to happen here. It's already, the table's being set right now as we speak. They're blaming this, they, meaning the mainstream media, on hot weather conditions.
My God.
I swear to you, I saw it this morning, that these refineries are unable to work when the temperature reaches a certain degree. Now, that may very well be true. I don't know. But what I will say is they're already sharpening the blades on the climate change thing.
Mm.
Now, they also talk about, of course, there's the production from the Middle East is, they've cut their barrels there. They're like, screw you, we're not doing this anymore. And of course, it's impossible to drill for more oil in this country. And as a result, you're seeing it at the pump right now.
Mm-hmm.
But they're going to blame, somehow they're going to blame this on global warming. They've already set the table because it's so hot, they can't produce the oil.
My gosh.
If you got an electric
insane.
car, I know, but I'm telling you, I've saw 3 stories this morning, all from different networks, that this is where they're going with this.
And then
Wow.
de facto, they're going to say that it's MAGA Republicans, because the Hillary Clinton tweet tells us that the reason why it's so hot outside is because of MAGA Republicans.
Right.
Duh.
We know. Well, yeah. Well, we know that,
We
right?
can control the weather.
That's right. That's right. Powerful people. I'll tell you that. They give us a lot of credit, don't they? Man. I also want to, this
But
Washington Post.
You've
what?
been around. You've been around, Sky. You're
Yeah.
a little older than I am. Not much,
Yeah.
but a little. I mean,
A
it's
lot
always
older.
hot. It's always hot
Yeah.
in July. Like, I don't understand where they're like record temperatures. It's like, it's always been hot. This is like
I'll
the
tell you-
hottest time. We've had a pretty mild summer so far.
I'll tell you something. If you ever did any farm work at all, ever, and you were outside in the summer, I was. If you detasseled corn in July and August before school started, if you were baling hay, good Lord, man. There's some days you cooked out there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, you wouldn't be able to do it because the farmer would be held accountable for dangerous working conditions and blah, blah, blah. But all that being, that's what we did.
We've got a
We did that.
Congress critter who is protesting that right now, and he's going on a fast for 9 hours, okay? And he's not
Yeah,
drinking
right.
water.
Well,
he's fixing it, Scott.
That guy. Shameless people. This was a shameless headline yesterday. Washington Post weighed in on Jack Smith. You know who Jack Smith is, don't you, Kat?
Oh, yeah.
He's the
goon.
guy that's involved in the prosecution of Donald Trump right now. This is real. This is out of the Washington Post. I'm not kidding you. Jack Smith, that guy, 54, who has completed more than 100 triathlons, is leading federal investigations of Donald Trump, who has been indicted. Now, I don't know what the point was on the 100 triathlons had to do with anything,
What?
but they did. Actually, that's absolutely true.
My God.
And,
Jack Smith, this isn't his first rodeo. I forget the name of the guy, but he was going after a Republican presidential candidate years ago, and he went after him, and then the Supreme Court said, "What are you doing?" And it went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and they said, "You can't go after this guy for this."
Well, he's been
And
in
they shut
100
him down.
triathlons. Just stop.
Nice.
He's been in 100 triathlons,
Oh.
and that makes him fit and ready to go.
Oh, I see.
By the way, what's with the weird beard too? Okay, that's got to go. You seen this guy? Okay.
I know.
All right, yeah.
What is that? Like a little goatee-ish type thing.
Yeah, and it's just the whole weird beard thing. Okay. Like he's writing poetry on the beach on his spare time, All right. Talk to you later. See you.
I'll see you later,
Yeah,
Scott Robbins. All right, folks, we have to take a break, but we're going to be back here on the Morning Buzz visiting with Darren Bailey. He's running for Congress. Plus, we're going to get into the story about this murder suspect on the run. He's been on the run for 3 weeks, folks. 3 weeks for stabbing this girl, and he was a DACA recipient. And I've got a question for Darren. Does he think that Governor J.B. Pritzker would be totally cool with having him apply to be a police officer nowadays? More next on the Buzz. Good morning, folks. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. Like I said, we're going to get Darren Bailey in the 8 o'clock hour. We've got a couple of stories that I'm going to hit before. Like I said, Justin Trudeau, Sophie Trudeau, wow, they're no longer married. I could have seen that one from a million miles away, probably because Justin Trudeau was screwing around with a 14-year-old. People are saying she was 14 at the time. So look that up. It's very much media blackout. The Buffalo Chronicle has a lot of information about Justin Trudeau there. Some background for you on the murder suspect case that we're going to be getting into. So the murder suspect, he's a DACA recipient and is on the run for about 3 weeks now. Stabbed this young girl, an ex-girlfriend of his in Springfield, Illinois. Now, the reason why I bring up that he was a DACA recipient is because Governor J.B. Pritzker, he goes, I proudly signed this bill to allow legal permanent residents and DACA recipients in Illinois to serve their communities as police officers. So, DACA recipients, is that somebody like Gabriel Calixto? Because he's been in and out of prison. I mean, he attended college, maintained employment, but in late 2017, he began struggling with some mental issues, some suicide attempts. And get this, in 2018, he had criminal charges and he pled guilty to kidnapping, and he was sentenced to 6 years in the Illinois Department of Correction. So his DACA program status expired in 2019. So he was still here on DACA. So apparently he was allowed to serve in United States prison in the state of Illinois. I feel like if you kidnapped a girl and you're here on the DACA program, why is your ass not just deported? I don't understand why we kept you in our prison on my taxpayer money, right? Like we housed you, we fed you in the prison. You have no respect for our laws, our U.S. sovereignty, nothing. So he pled guilty to that. He didn't even serve the whole 6 years. His kidnapping conviction was vacated. He pled guilty to a lesser charge, and he was resentenced to time served, and he was released in 2020. So he's out there, and get this, he must have not renewed his DACA recipienthood because he was charged with a federal charge of improper entry. So he was here illegally. He was not on any type of program back in 2021. And but get this, the story thickens even more. So this federal charge, he goes before this judge, and then the judge says, release him and I'll give him some conditions. What? So he was released, but ICE did pick him up. And they picked him up in 2020. And that's where the timeline gets kind of clouded because he filed for some sort of habeas release on the grounds that he was denied constitutional right to due process because they picked him up, DHS did, in 2021. Now it's unclear at this time how he managed to get out of release from the DHS in 2021. And now they either deported him and then he came back, walked right back over the border. Who knows? But this is wild stuff. I don't know how he was able to do all this. The system is truly broken. We're going to get to it here on the Buzz. Hang around a bit. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. And joining me in just a little while, Darren Bailey. He's running for Congress, and I'm so excited to talk with him about not only this story about this murder suspect who's been on the run. I feel like this should lead every national headline. Here we have a DACA recipient, somebody who was in this country illegally. I don't think he was supposed to be here. He was in custody of the DHS for a period of time back in 2021. I don't know how in the world he was able to get out of DHS custody and managed to somehow commit another crime. Allegedly, he stabbed this woman in Springfield recently, and he's still at large. Like, I haven't seen anything. I contacted the Springfield police to see if, hey, is he in charge? Is he apprehended? Did we catch the guy? I don't know. And he was here on the DACA program. He committed a previous crime. He kidnapped a different girl back in 2018, and then he was allowed to eat prison food, be housed in our prison here in the state of Illinois. Don't know how that happened, but I like the moment you commit a crime and you're on the DACA program, I feel like your butt should be deported, but he was never deported. So I don't know how he managed to stay here in this country. He was clearly a bad dude. He's even pictured, folks, with Dick Durbin, our senator, our Illinois senator, and U.S. senator, and like he's allowed to be like this Democrat community activist, and he's got all of these different prior convictions. He kidnapped a girl, and now he stabbed a girl. It's wild. And joining me here to talk about it is Darren Bailey in the 8 o'clock hour. Plus, I do want to talk about these carbon pipelines. Being that Darren is a farmer, he might be able to provide some sort of insight into why some farmers are pro carbon pipelines, this carbon sequestration, where they suck carbon emissions from ethanol plants and they take that carbon emissions, they shove it down into the ground. There's these two massive pipelines coming to the state of Illinois. There's a lot of things you got to know. Plus, eventually, I do want to get Darren's take here on the police arresting this teenager for reading the Bible in a park near this drag queen event, being that Darren is a devout Christian. And I'm curious his thoughts on this national story, too. So we've got so much planned for you in the 8 o'clock hour. You won't want to miss it. Morning Buzz 309-451-9299. You can text in, and you can also see me live in the studio, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Good morning, Mr. Bailey. Darren Bailey, how are you?
I'm doing just great. How are you today?
Wonderful. All right, we got audio. Folks, we are live on the broadcast, Rumble, Facebook, Twitter. We've got Darren Bailey, and he's running for Congress against Mike Bost. Is that how you say it?
That is correct. Here in the 12th district, the southern third, basically, of Illinois. So,
all right. Well, we're going to get into your run, but first, I do want to ask you why even run for Congress? You ran for governor. Governor J.B. Pritzker has victorious, although I think it was stolen. When you look at the numbers, you break down DPP, David Paul, and we were looking at the numbers. What's gone on since 2010 to now, 2018. I mean, Pritzker has gotten insane vote totals in comparison to the Democrat that was running in 2010. I think it was Pat Quinn. When you look at the vote totals, it's absolutely wild. But why run for Congress? Why Congress?
well, I'll tell you what, and I will tell you regarding the votes, especially here in Illinois, there are some pretty amazing things taking place. 1 week ago, I had a gentleman at my house that is uncovering some really the cast vote balloting. He's looking at that in Madison County, where over 200,000 votes were cast, and they're discovering that roughly maybe 20,000 votes are unaccounted for. So it's going to be interesting. You know, you ask yourself, why didn't this stuff? Why are we still talking about it? Why aren't we coming up with solutions? And unfortunately, as we all know, you know, for lawsuits, for FOIAs, for sometimes to get into places like Madison County or say, especially Cook County, they block it. So it costs money, you know, getting lawyers and attorneys to take care of this. But there is one gentleman who kind of took this upon himself, and he's been able to retrieve some information, and he's I think we'll be hearing about that later. You know, I've struggled with that a lot in saying that when up to this point, was it stolen or did we give it away? Because here's the reality, Kat. The reality is that we knew that if we could get a 60% voter turnout, that we would win. But unfortunately, only 45% of the people showed up, of registered voters. And don't forget, only 70% of all eligible voters are registered. So 45% of them showed up on November 8th. J.B. Pritzker spent $35 million collecting 650 of the 800,000 mail-in ballots. So this whole journey, it's not something I've sought all the way from when I ran with David Paul in 2017 in the 2018 primary, first starting as a state representative. I was fed up with the system. I'm fed up for my children, my grandchildren. We're losing our future in this country. And it's a passion. I thought I'd get elected a state rep and serve 10 years, term limit myself, and go home. But my state senator, stepped down. And when he did that, the people of the 55th Senate District came and said, Darren, represent us, because COVID had happened by then. And they knew, we never closed our doors. We were there for people, taking care of them to muddle through government. And so I thought I'm going to term limit myself to 10 years and be the senator and come home. But then the opportunity arose that J.B. Pritzker, surely people are fed up with him destroying our state as they are. And I wasn't satisfied with the people that I saw who were signing up, to run for governor. So I said, we can do this. So we threw our hat in the ring, and man, we built a statewide grassroots movement like I believe nothing any other state has. So what do we do with this, with not achieving the goal? What do we do? Do we just simply walk away? Go back home, go to the farm? What do we do? And I truly believe that as I explore and look at government, I'm a term limits guy. I don't see anyone out there who has served over 10 years who's pulling their weight. After it seems that time, people become beholden to the system, beholden to lobbyists and bureaucrats. And I think we deserve better, and I think we can do better. So taking this movement to DC, where the platform's larger, I have full faith and confidence that we can work backwards then with the messaging that we can put out in DC, standing up, drawing the line, fighting, not caving in to the status quo, and work backwards to ultimately, who knows, save Illinois for a 2030 or 2034 election. Right now in the state of Illinois, the other problem we have is our Republican Party. It's broken, it's messed up. So until we get that fixed, a true conservative, there's a difference when we say Republican and when we say conservative. They are not the same. Anyone can run on the Republican ticket, but being a conservative shows up in your voting habits and who you deal with and who you work with. So that's the Cindy and I and our supporters here. We believe that congressionally, we need a fighter in DC, and I think I've proven to be that fighter here in Illinois. So I can't wait to shake things up on a national level, and then through our conversations, through our talking points, work it backwards right here to pinpoint and make sure the nation knows what a desperate situation Illinois is in.
Yeah, we really are in a desperate situation, and we're coming back for our radio friends. So hang on, guys. We'll be back in just about 30 seconds. Imagine reading the Bible in a park and then being taken away in cuffs. Now, let's throw this into the mix. You're a teenager. It comes from Wisconsin, this story. It's a teenager, and he was near this drag queen event where there were drag queens thrusting themselves in the faces of children. They were gyrating in lingerie, grown men dressed as women. And this young boy was taken away by police, arrested, cuffed. There was a viral video that, it had 2 million views on it. It was explosive. And I looked for the video this morning. I couldn't find it because people have taken it down. All the video really showed was that this poor kid was taken away in cuffs. And I've got that story coming up, and I'm going to get Darren Bailey's reaction to that story here in just about 15 minutes. But Darren Bailey joining me. Darren Bailey ran for governor, and Governor J.B. Pritzker won, unfortunately. But he's running for Congress, and it's the 12th district. Is that right, Darren?
That is correct. Southern third of Illinois.
Yeah. All right. Well, tell me a little bit about why you're running for Congress, what you're planning to do a little bit at the national level. And you were telling our live streamers a little bit about what you plan to do, but just give us kind of a reason why you're going for Congress now instead of the governorship to try to go at that again.
Well, people are asking a lot, hey, you're running for governor, in 2026 when it comes around again. And the answer is, probably not, because we faced more opposition from our own party
Mm.
than J.B. Pritzker and the Democrats here in Illinois. As I mentioned earlier, there's a difference when you say Republican and conservative. There's a real difference, and that's where the name Rhino comes in, Republican in name only. And unfortunately, until we get back to these are written down documents in the Republican platform. This ideology that we have, and too many people aren't beholden to that. So, with that in mind, I'm a term limits guy. I believe 10 years is enough. If you can't figure and make a difference in that time, go home. And that's exactly the situation that I see here in the 12th Congressional District. And I think this grassroots movement that we've been able to build, all of us, not me, all of us, that we've built over this last 2 years, and even prior to that, when I sued Pritzker and won and stood up against the mask mandate. I've been standing up from day one. So Illinois needs a fighter in a congressional district, and I can't wait to join Mary Miller in that fight, because she's that kind of person that will draw the line sometimes and say, no, I don't think so. I don't think this is the right thing to do. So I can't wait to let's work backwards. Let's take our movement to a national level. Let's shake things up in DC, and let's pinpoint and highlight, as I said earlier, the problems of Chicago, the problems of Illinois, the problems of failed government here. Let's get that on a national platform. And then who knows, maybe 2030, 2034, we can actually begin electing true conservative Republicans.
Well, and it's incredible. A lot of times I think that Illinois, and I don't know if it's just because we're in the Midwest and people just forget that we're here, but at the national level, you start to see, people raise concerns about the immigration issue in New York City, or even in California, but nobody's talking about what's going on here and at home, right here in Springfield, Illinois, which is the reason why I wanted to have you on today, Darren, because you're going to be in Congress now. And the main thing for me is this immigration issue, because I'm seeing it here in Bloomington Normal. I've seen some refugees is what they were calling themselves. And I was shocked by the stories that they told me. This guy, I just asked him, I was like, so how'd you get here? And he told me about a story about how this man with a huge gun, a Mexican man with a bunch of tattoos, had him pay him $3,000 to get over the border, not even over the border, just kind of close enough for him to walk over the border. And that's he had a young baby with him, this refugee, and he's on the street corner here in Bloomington Normal. And now this story, this guy is at large. I'm pretty sure he hasn't been apprehended. I've been trying to contact the Springfield police to ask them, hey, is he been caught yet? His name is Gabriel Calixto, and I guess he's a murder suspect for stabbing this young girl. She goes by the name of Emma Shafer. She's dead now, but she was a Democrat activist. She worked on some sort of immigration project down in Springfield. And this guy was known, he was known to have kidnapped a different girl back in 2018. He served in the Illinois time in the Illinois Department of Corrections. Then he was had his kidnapping charge vacated. This guy was bad news, and he was here on this DACA program. So I want to read this tweet to you real quick, Darren, that Governor J.B. Pritzker put out there. He was blasting Ron DeSantis, saying that Illinois is now letting illegal aliens become police officers. And J.B. Pritzker said, I proudly signed a bill allowing legal permanent residents and DACA recipients in Illinois to serve in their communities as police officers. This man was a DACA recipient. As far as his status and, his custody with the DHS and everything, point is, he was here in the country. I don't know if he was here illegally or if he was here on the DACA program, but originally he got here through the DACA program, and it expired in 2019. I'm not too sure. Everything gets clouded. The court documents get clouded up after 2021. I don't know how he was here in 2023 and how he had the ability to stab a girl and flee and is at large. He's still on the run from what I understand. But J.B. Pritzker is touting that people like Gabriel Calixto can now become police officers. Your thoughts, reaction about Governor J.B. Pritzker signing this bill, and not only that, but Republicans, my state representative here, a Republican, co-sponsoring this legislation that eventually got signed into law here at in the state of Illinois.
Well, unfortunately, it doesn't surprise me. And the sad part of it is, Kat, this man's got 3 more years of tyranny here for Illinois. What are we going to see in the next 3 years? I cannot imagine the bills that were signed even this year. You can't dream, you know what? You can't dream this stuff up. The reality is President Trump was and is right that we must close the border. We must secure our borders. What is wrong with allowing these people to come in legally? That's the way it should be. But to open these borders up we all know about the fentanyl cases. Now we're learning how terrible the sex trafficking is. Now we know where these drugs are coming in. We know why cities like Chicago are having so much violence. Right here is a perfect example of this. And now it's permeated all over the state of Illinois. We're hearing about cities in New York and California and here in Illinois telling Joe Biden, quit sending people in no more. We can't handle it. So, I've stood and argued for the last 4 years on the House and on the Senate floors. And I've argued that yes, Democrats, you're in the super majority, but you represent everyone. And sometimes when you pass these bills, areas like mine, a county, Clay County, a county of 13,000 people, and many of the counties in Southern Illinois, 25,000 people, we don't want this. If you want it in Cook County, good for you. If you want it in your, set a population standard where some of these ridiculous bills don't have to affect everyone. And so I would be met with the same reply every time. The Democrats would look over at me and say, well, you want to work with us? You want us to work with you? Let's support our legislation. Then we can work together. And that's exactly what happened with House Bill 3751. State Rep Barbara Hernandez came with this idea of allowing, hey, we need police, so why not let the illegals there, we obviously have an influx of illegal, immigrants, people who are not here legally in our state. So let's let them sign up to be police officers. And so there was this thought, the way this got sold was that, well, constitutionally, nationally, this is illegal. And a state cannot, to my knowledge, surpass that. But they said, well, let's just pass this bill. And then when the United States Congress okays this, and they obviously believe that's going to happen, then we'll be ready to go and we can hire these people. Well, here's the problem. J.B. Pritzker right now, as we speak, he's touting that he can and he will begin allowing police officers to hire illegal immigrants to carry a gun and police uphold the law here in this land. He was on news yesterday saying that. So he touts the fact that, well, they're serving in our military. Why shouldn't they be governing our everyday lives? So when something's broken, you got to ask yourself, how much more broken can it get? And here in Illinois, this is absolutely disgusting is what it is. This is wrong. And interestingly enough, there's a few other bills. Senate Bill 423 lowers the standard of probations. Man, we're infringing on somebody when they get out of prison or jail. Why? Let them go to work. Why do we have to babysit them? So that's what Senate Bill 423 says. Senate Bill 1463 says that anyone under the age of 18 who breaks the law, there will be no fines or fees incurred, because we don't want to label these people. We don't want to instead of getting them help. So no, HB 3751 is many Republicans believed this idea. Thank goodness it kind of got held up in the Senate. They started asking questions and they started realizing, wow, this what's up with this? And the House had the opportunity to rectify it, but unfortunately that didn't happen. And even after this was passed and Representative Hernandez said nothing's going to change, until the U.S. law is changed. Well, she still went to the back door and tried to change it. So that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with people that totally want lawlessness in this land. That's how you destroy a republic. You create lawlessness and confusion and mayhem, and that's what's taking place. And this is a Marxist mentality that we're dealing with. And if we, the people, don't step up and start paying attention to those that we elect, if we don't start holding accountable, our elected officials, this thing's going to slip right between our fingers.
Exactly. Well, and we're talking with Darren Bailey. He's running for Congress, folks, in the 12th district. And one thing that you mentioned was this child trafficking thing. And this is it's the cold hard truth that this is happening. And I hope that when you're in Congress that you can address the DACA program. I can't believe the numbers on this thing. The average age, and Governor J.B. Pritzker says that because they're DACA recipients and they're legally able to work here in the United States, that gives them the federal legality to become a police officer, I guess. But the average age of a DACA recipient is 29 years old. And tell me how that makes sense when the program itself is called the Deferred Action Childhood Arrivals, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. It's supposed to be for children. I'm just going to read it here. The purpose of the program was created to protect eligible young adults who were brought to the United States as children from deportation, and to provide them with work authorization and temporary renewable periods. So, I mean, 29-year-olds. So that's like fighting aged men, like military aged men that we are allowing to stay here on this program, the DACA program. But then also, in this case, we were talking specifically about the Gabriel Calixto case where he got the status, the DACA status at the age of 15. I feel like DACA is child trafficking. We get them here. There's no parents. Essentially the state takes, or in the United States takes kind of accountability for this individual at the age of 15. And, it's no wonder that this Gabriel fellow became diagnosed with this major depressive disorder. He started having suicidal thoughts, and then he went into a crime and pled guilty to kidnapping and started committing all kinds of crimes. It's no wonder, and because you've taken their family away from them. I feel like this is like state sanctioned. Our nation is behind human trafficking. And they've just kind of put this DACA program as a label, like a fluffy little label. But really what you're doing, you're ripping these children from their families and giving them all kinds of like resources, and they're not satisfied. There's no satisfaction in that. And now they've resorted to crime. And I think they're grooming them to become Democrat voters. That's what Gabriel was. He was pictured with Dick Durbin. He was an activist, a community activist for the Democrat Party. Right? So like that's what happened to his life. He was groomed to be a Democrat voter, a Democrat activist, and he hated his life, clearly with his mental disorder, and then lashed out in all kinds of criminal ways. Is there anything you can do as a congressman to stop DACA? I mean, it feels like this is ridiculous.
Well, I think that's why I've been able to go where I've been able to go in this political journey, Kat. I've been the fighter. I've been the one to get on Facebook real time and alert my viewers and my constituents as what's going on. And I've been the one to post those phone numbers of the offices, and I've been the one to go down on the floor and sit by my colleagues when they look over at me, my Republican colleagues, and did you post my office number? And I said, yes, I did, because people need to know what you're supporting and what you're doing. It's not right. I've been the one to turn that heat up. And I'm telling you what, it's not fun. It's uncomfortable because you don't have a lot of friends, when that happens. And that's why many times you've seen the establishment come at me full force in the governor's race. You're going to see, and you're seeing the establishment come at me full force in this congressional bid, because they don't want accountability. They don't want the people to know the truth. So that's exactly what I will do. That's that platform that I'm talking about, that larger platform on a national level that I will have to stand up with many others in the Freedom Caucus. They're doing it. the Freedom
Mm.
Caucus is doing it right now, and I look forward to to potentially be a part of that, because I want to inform and educate and empower the people, and especially encourage the people that it can be better. But it won't be better if we just sat back and we read these headlines and are frustrated with them all the time. Because I have talked with those families as you have. I've talked with people who have spent supposedly upwards of $12,000 to supposedly be ensured that they get across the border, legally, and sometimes in UPS trucks. I mean, from what I'm hearing, it's appalling. I've seen pictures and video of American humanitarian groups south of the border handing out condoms and birth control, because it seems like the Democrat Party is just like, well, it's just part of life. This sex trafficking, it's going to happen, so let's do what we can to protect them and make it a little bit easier, at least till they get over here. So and the other thing regarding all of this, I'm even when we talk about crime and drug problems, I'm beginning to believe and understand that this sex trafficking problem may be the biggest problem, not just worldwide, but right here in the U.S. I mean, it is sickening, disgusting, and appalling. And the interesting part is God's word in 2 Timothy chapter 3 tells us all of this. In the last days, this is what it is going to look like. And when we allow this kind of harm and perversion to be put upon our children, gosh, does it get worse than that? And that's where we're at.
Well, we have to take a quick break, but we're going to be back here on the live stream. I like that you brought up 2 Timothy, because I'm going to ask you about this story coming out of Wisconsin this morning. It was a viral video about this Bible verse, and he was just preaching, really. I mean, just reading the Bible at this public park, but it touches on what you're talking about, the perversion, the drag queens. So I wanted to hold you over for the live stream here, Darren, if we could. Radio friends, we'll be back in just a little while. Alrighty, we're back here on the live stream. Folks, if you're watching, go ahead and smash the like button. Share this out with your normie friends. It's important that we share out alternative media, because it's stressing them out. Obama was even out there, and he was like saying that in a private lunch, he goes, "Oh, I'm kind of worried about this pro-Trump conservative media ecosystem." That's what has come out now, that Obama is freaking out about the conservative media ecosystem. And you can be a part of that ecosystem by just simply sharing the video and liking it. And go find Darren Bailey on Facebook. I think it's so funny that Governor J.B. Pritzker, as soon as he came out and he was like, all of these right-wingers on Facebook and their misinformation, I was like, oh, okay, next time, JB, why don't you just at Darren next time? Like, just tag him, okay? Like, you're clearly talking about Darren Bailey and his Facebook Darren Bailey daily. So it's incredible. I was like, JB, just come out and name him. Just like you live in his head rent free.
Right, and that's the impact that we can have. And that's when people ask, why are you running? Why would you want to run for Congress? Because of that. We are when we expose the truth, when we empower the people, JB and others feel the heat, and they're feeling that, and they are so the system is the system. Even Republicans. That's why you see many Republicans up north getting on the DeSantis movement. They are so scared of Donald J. Trump, because they know that when he is elected, he is going to be unleashed. He's a business person like I am. We learn from our mistakes. We learn and we rapidly change, and we move forward in a vicious manner in order to restore, save, protect our Constitution and our people. And that's what I believe President Trump's going to do. And this movement, these the George Soros money and the many people like that, they're fearful of that because of what they seek to tear down. And I truly, at the end of the day, don't understand it. But what they seek, this movement of destruction, I believe is going to be stopped cold in its tracks. And J.B. Pritzker is very much a part of that movement. I mean, we're seeing it. How else can you explain this nonsense? So yes, that is the power of this group that is growing, this movement, this grassroots of Illinois, and that is how that's how we create change. And these are the results of what you're just talking about.
Oh yeah, exactly. I am so excited to be a part of it. Right, that's one thing that I don't think a lot of people like realize is that you get to be a part of this ecosystem of change. And I think that things are really going to start to change. And they're freaking out because of viral videos like this. And I do want to get your thoughts on this video. I can't play it for you, unfortunately, because the big tech media oligarchs, right, they have taken down the video of this young boy in Wisconsin getting arrested for simply reading a Bible verse. So just some background. His name is Marcus Schrader. Now he has come out and he said that if the police wanted to try to set an example for others or anything like that, the only thing I've seen is actually the opposite, because what you've started to do is you've created more people seeing the severity of this situation where we have these drag queens in this park, and the video is just appalling. It was appalling. I saw it this morning, but now it's taken down, where these men were dressed up in lingerie and they were shaking in front of these young children, And this young man was arrested because he was just talking about the Bible and on this public sidewalk. Now, this is blatant violation of the First Amendment. So there was also another gentleman who was there preaching, and the cop said that he was arrested for unlawful use of sound amplification and resisting arrest. This one, Marcus Schrader, I don't know what he was arrested for, what the charges are, but your thoughts here, Darren. Why would something like this be, one, censored? It's now censored off of social media. You can't even see the video of him being arrested for reading this Bible verse. What is it about Christians? What is it about the Bible that freak these people out? And, you know, you had mentioned 2 Timothy and the end times and how it kind of looks like this. Thoughts on that story?
Well, we know that, the truth penetrates. When Jesus was being crucified, Pilate asked Jesus, what is truth? Truth is the light. Truth is the salt, and truth, insults sometimes, and people don't like that. So at the end of the day, we don't know all of the details, obviously, but, I can't help but think that a fair amount of ignorance is involved here. Maybe there was a mayor of the community that gave orders to because maybe this mayor didn't understand the Constitution or the First Amendment, and then maybe the police officers just went out and followed orders and did. I don't know, but I've seen things like this play out in a manner when you go back and talk to people. Why? Well, I was following orders. Well, I thought. And I want to get reelected, so that's why people do some of this stuff. And at some point in time, for the police officer example, if you're doing something that's unconstitutional and against your will and against your beliefs, by all means, stand up and say, no, stop it. So ignorance, apathy, on behalf even of we the people, we're sitting by and allowing this stuff to happen. And where is our voice at? Where are we don't just have to count on our elected officials, congressmen, state reps, state senators, county board members, school board members. At some point in time, I'm encouraging people. Someone asked me the other day, what's the one thing that you would advise to change a lot of this stuff? And the one thing that I believe is that people need to start showing up at school board meetings, county board meetings, city hall meetings, start showing up and start listening. Go to ilga.gov and start showing up at Springfield and listen to these committee hearings. Listen, just once, 2 or 3 times a year, go to a monthly meeting and sit and listen to what's taking place. Get to know these people. And then as you get to know them respectfully, encourage them or hold them accountable. And I think that if we start getting engaged, someone else asked me another question. Do you believe in less government or more government? Well, of course, my answer is always less government. But the gentleman said, well, what if I told you more government was the answer? And I said, okay, I'm all ears. I'll listen. And he said, well, if more people were involved, we are the government, we the people. If more people would get involved, essentially, we would have a larger government. And I don't think we'd have the problems that we have. So we, the people, hold the keys to all of this. And at the end of the day, I'm not surprised. It's discouraging because it seems like that things are speeding up. Things are happening at a much more rapid pace. And these stories we just didn't imagine are taking place. So, but we have the ability, we're in the last days, but we don't give up. We keep on. And I think that when we get engaged, understand, get ourselves educated, take a little bit of time to sit in a meeting some evening and start listening to the process. Maybe enough people to get frustrated enough to run for office and get this shit turned around.
Exactly. Yeah, no, and I agree. I think that there is an energy that's happening locally as well, where people will start to begin to show up. I honestly think that if this conviction happens of Donald Trump, that's going to lead to a lot of people wanting to do something, and they have no idea where to channel this energy. And I think that we're going to start to see county board meetings just kind of fill up. And, for our listener, Jack Smith, this is just playbook. This is what the Democrats have been doing for years. He did this to another Republican presidential candidate, and they drag out Jack Smith to do all of this. And I think people are starting to get fed up. We are coming back for the radio. Darren, I do want to ask you, can I ask you about the pistol guards? Have you heard about the pistol guards and how they're trying to ban them federally? And do you know what a pistol guard is? That what they're called, the pistol guards?
Well, yeah, there's another name for them, and it's a well, you got me on that one. I can't. Yes, I'm aware of what you're talking about. So kind of makes them into a
Yeah. Well, and we'll talk about Illinois as well, just for
okay.
2 minutes. 2 minutes. It's
Okay,
a
all
short
right.
break.
All right.
Hold on
Thanks.
one sec. Good morning, folks. This is the Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for joining me. And Darren Bailey is on the other line. He's running for Congress in the 12th District. It's in Southern Illinois there against Mike Bost. And he's been joining me. We've been talking a lot about immigration. We talked a lot about this movement, this energy that's happening, and we need to start getting even more government in our local county board meetings or school board meetings. That's how we're going to take this back. But he's taking his fight national. He's a fighter, and he's going to bring it national and hopefully stir up some conversation, because Illinois is in a very desperate situation. Speaking of which, I want to switch gears on you and talk about the pistol guards and how they have been going after these federally. They're trying to ban them. Now, I'm not exactly sure what a pistol guard exactly is. I've seen them before. I think it's mainly to try to bring the firearm close to your chest like a pistol, not a shotgun, to bring it close to your chest and to be able to kind of use it as a shotgun. It's typically used for older people and for women who have issues with the recoil. And I guess the federal government has been going after this. And I wanted to get your thoughts on it, being that you pro 2A and you wanted to void the void when you were running for governor. That was what was on your T-shirt, void the void. And Illinois is dealing with their own so-called assault weapons ban. So thoughts about the pistol guard? Why would they want to ban that? I don't understand. It's not even a gun. It's just kind of an accessory. And typically it's used by women and old people, right? When they have issues with the recoil. So thoughts on the federal ban and on the Illinois assault weapons ban as well.
Yeah, you've got me just for the moment. I don't think they're called. The pistol guard is an actual sheath that covers up the trigger, but you are right. A pistol guard is essentially a stock extension. There's a name, and I can't think of what that is. But the bottom line is this: no infringement to Second Amendment, period. None, zero. The Second Amendment is intended to protect the First. None. We've got legislators out there who, whether it's bump stock bans or whatever it is, nothing. What we need is more stricter laws. You're telling me that the city of Chicago, with every weekend that goes by, we've got just 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 shootings. We've got 10, 20, 30 deaths every weekend. But yet, many times when these people are arrested, if they're allowed to pursue, bring the person in, and if they're not deemed a threat, to our news, if they're not deemed a threat, the person that broke the law is usually walking out of the police station before the officer gets done making the reports. We need very strict laws, and we need to uphold those laws. People that break the laws and commit these egregious crimes, they need held accountable. None. The Second Amendment, firearms, was never intended to be messed with at all. You can go back and see the original intent of our founding fathers. And yeah, you want to argue that, oh, those are flintlocks and muskets. Well, that's exactly was the common weapon, the common firearm of the armies of the day. So the founding fathers knew exactly what they were talking about. And again, you want to destroy a republic, create lawlessness, and basically handcuff law enforcement, and then handcuff the people. And then 250 years ago, when the English monarchy was doing that to the people of the colonies, a few stood up and said, you know what, I don't think this is what we came here and settled for, and I think we want something different. So that is the purpose of the Second Amendment.
Darren, we are cutting to another break, but how do we find out more about you and your run for Congress?
Absolutely. Go to baileyforillinois.com. It's the same web name that we used in the governor's race, and we've got a really awesome store there. You can invite us to speak at events, and you can volunteer, and you can donate. We need all the help that we can get. And obviously we are focusing most of our energy in the 12th congressional. So baileyforillinois.com. I'd be honored for you to be a partner in this movement as we continue to take the voice and shake up to DC.
I love it. Darren Bailey, thank you so much for joining me. And folks, we are going to be back. There's a few things that I want to get to, specifically this story about a social worker who got fired because she criticized Dylan Mulvaney. Yes. She got fired from her job because she criticized a TikToker. That's next on The Buzz. Hey, good morning, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in. We are going to be talking about Dylan Mulvaney being criticized by this. She's actually a lesbian social worker, which is kind of funny. She got blacklisted for criticizing this guy aloud. So she was wondering aloud, she's being punished for her thoughts. That's what we've got here in the UK. But I want to file this story under Pay Attention America because it's coming to your back door. If Dylan Mulvaney had he, she, they's way, in this country, you would be probably even legally held liable for your thoughts about transgender people. So she was talking about with her coworkers how she didn't know how a skinny man with no breasts, was going to sell sports bras for Nike. So she had a conversation with some of her coworkers, I assume, and after that, in an investigation through the agency that she relies to find her social work through, no longer is going to be providing her jobs. So incredible. She got fired for simply criticizing a TikTok influencer. That's where we're at. Becky Swan, yes, Darren did say shit. He did, in fact, say that. And I was like, yeah, go, Darren. He goes, we got to stop this shit. We can say that here on the stream. We're not confined by FCC regulations. But yes, Darren Bailey did say that word as SHIT, not ship. So that was fun. That was a lot of fun. Now, a little bit later, I do want to talk about Joe Biden meeting with Devin Archer 20 times. Tucker Carlson did this sit down with Devin Archer. It was an exclusive interview, and we now have this never before seen letter from Joe Biden to Devin Archer, clearly establishing Joe Biden's very intimate knowledge of his son's business dealings, his foreign business dealings. If you're watching right now, go ahead and smash that like button. I would greatly appreciate it if you could do that for me. We're going to be back in just a second. I'm going to go grab myself a cup of coffee. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. And do you remember these whoppers from Joe Biden during the 2020 presidential debates? Listen closely at the ease with which he lies to the American people. Just take a listen to this. This was back in 2020 during the debates. Here
Joe
we go.
got $3.5 million from Russia, and it came through Putin because he was very friendly with the former mayor of Moscow, and it was the mayor of Moscow's wife. And you got $3.5 million. Your family got $3.5 million.
I have not taken a penny from any foreign source ever in my life.
I don't make money from China. You do. I don't make money from Ukraine. You do. I don't make money from Russia. You made $3.5 million, Joe.
I have not taken a single penny from any country whatsoever.
Very quickly.
His son didn't have a job for a long time. Burisma, not the best reputation in the world. I hear they paid him
No basis for that. Everybody investigated that. No one said anything he did was wrong in Ukraine.
Oh gosh, there you have it, folks. Every part of that was a lie. Biden knew it. He knew that Hunter was raking in millions from foreign oligarchs, and he knew it because a huge share of that money was going to himself. The entire Biden lifestyle would be impossible without millions pouring in from foreign oligarchs. Joe Biden, you are a pathological liar. America is in serious danger so long as this man is in power. And they are trying their darndest to try to keep Donald Trump from getting elected again and taking back that White House. That's why they've drug out Jack Smith. This isn't the first time they've drug out Jack Smith to go after a Republican presidential candidate. So they've got that. Likely what's going to happen is a conviction, folks, because this judge is a Obama appointed. She's crazy. She's a lunatic, and he's not going to get a fair trial in Washington, D.C. So they're going to convict him. And then eventually that would have to go up to the Supreme Court. He's going to have to appeal. It has to go up to the Supreme Court. But all of that takes time. And they know that ultimately, I think the Supreme Court is going to say this is a bunch of phooey. How could you do this, Jack Smith? You want to know how I know they're going to say that? Because it's happened before. Jack Smith has taken cases like this up to the Supreme Court before, and they've laughed. The guy has no shame. This TA has no shame. This attorney has no shame. So it's going to be laughed off. But here's the thing. This is election interference. They don't care that it's going to be laughed off by the Supreme Court at a later date. They care about here, now, 2024. They want to make sure Donald Trump does not get elected. This is election interference. Do want to discuss this story about a woman out of the UK. And I'm going to file this story under Pay Attention America because it's coming to you. This happened in the UK, but if Dylan Mulvaney had his, hers, they's way in this country, you would be fired, blacklisted, suspended from working, having criticized Dylan Mulvaney's authenticity of being a woman. So that's exactly what happened. This social worker is actually a lesbian. Now, in the UK, lesbians are ranked much lower on the left's most marginalized rankings. I mean, they're lower than the white man who virtue signals about being a transgender ally. So lesbians are very much down on the low ranking scale, or the low side of this scale of most marginalized people in the United Kingdom. Okay, so her name is Louise Shivers, and she was a social worker for 25 years on the job. One day during what I'm assuming to be a conversation with her coworkers, Dylan Mulvaney came up, and she said that Dylan was a misogynist who mocks women, and wondered how this skinny gay man with no boobs is going to be able to sell sports bras. So background for you, not only was Dylan Mulvaney the ambassador for Bud Light, but he was an ambassador for Nike. And Louise was told by her agency, the agency that she relies on to find her social work, was no longer going to find her jobs until a full investigation was conducted over her scandalous comments and her misconduct. So Louise tells the Telegraph that it's clear what's going on here, and that because she was gender critical, she's now being blacklisted and slandered as transphobic. She says, on this particular occasion, we were discussing gender neutral toilets, and I said I was uncomfortable using gender neutral toilets because the statistics surrounding them show that women are 8 times more likely to be raped in one of these gender neutral bathrooms. And then she said, I would struggle to buy Nike clothes anymore because I didn't agree with Dylan Mulvaney advertising sports bras because I thought it made a mockery of women. So she had thoughts. She had thoughts. She spoke those thoughts aloud, and she was fired for her thoughts. And Luis, if Dylan Mulvaney had his way, she would be held criminally liable, not just grounds for termination, but that she committed a crime for speaking ill of Dylan Mulvaney or disagreeing with Dylan Mulvaney and, you know, his pronouns, right? And not um and questioning his authenticity as a woman. Now, I can't think of an example here in Michigan. I think in Michigan there is some sort of bill where you can be held financial. You can have significant financial penalties if you misgender someone. That's happening in the United States. I haven't seen an example in America where, somebody got fired or suspended from work for criticizing this TikToker, Dylan Mulvaney, but don't hold your breath because getting arrested for reading the Bible happens here in the United States. And, I wouldn't be shocked if you get fired for criticizing a TikTok influencer. It has yet to happen. All right, I do have to take a break, but we're going to be back wrapping up the show. You can see me live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Rumble. I'm there. You can like the program, subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's Cat Peterson 929. Go find it. Cat Peterson on YouTube. I'll be back. Yeah. Okay. So one thing I wanted to point out with the Dylan Mulvaney thing, when I first saw Dylan Mulvaney's videos, I thought he was making a mockery of women. To be honest with you, I thought he was like doing this parody acting and he was acting out how he thought girls acted based on his hatred of women. And apparently that wasn't the case at all, that he's actually a man who thinks he's a woman and he acts like a woman. I thought it was a parody account. I didn't even think it was real. And I mentioned that here in the United States, you can get arrested for reading the Bible. Yes. So a Wisconsin teen reading the Bible in the park, seems innocent, right? And then all of a sudden it turned bad. He got arrested, handcuffed, drug out of the park because he was preaching and reading from the Bible, where I guess men dressed like skanky women, Bratz dolls, were gyrating in front of children. The young man was arrested for sharing the Bible on a public sidewalk. This is a blatant violation of the First Amendment of the Constitution. Every one of those cops need to be sued, fired. I don't care if you were following orders. It's sick with what happened here. And I've got the video. Somebody shared this with me because this morning this video got taken down from Facebook or from Twitter. I found it on Twitter. Now I've recently found it on Instagram. Somebody shared it with me. You can text me at 309-451-9299. I am going to share this here with you on the other side of this commercial break. It's incredible. Here we go. Let's look at this. So here he is preaching. The cops come up. They lay hands on him. They nab the microphone out of his hand. And he goes, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" I mean, this is a young kid preaching the Bible. It was a drag queen dance party in story time hour in Watertown, Wisconsin. Wow. Incredible. Oh, so you guys saw what I saw, right? I mean, they took him and they arrested him for that. That was insane. And that happened in the United States. Performers dressed in lingerie, dancing, gyrating in front of little children who were invited to give, like they were inviting these children to give them dollar bills. And that's happened in Bloomington before. I have a video on my phone of this young girl, no more than maybe 1, 2, handing a dollar bill to one of these drag queens in downtown Bloomington, a drag queen in a thong. So I have that video, and it happens everywhere. It happens here in Bloomington normal. It happens in Wisconsin. It happens everywhere around the nation. Number 2, I want to point this out. Sexually explicit conduct in front of minors is illegal according to Illinois or Wisconsin and Illinois law. There's something called sexually explicit material. You can't even disseminate sexually explicit material to children in the state of Illinois and in Wisconsin. So Marcus Schrader is the guy who got arrested for spitting out these Bible verses, and he's now come out and said to this publication, it was called the Republic Centennial. It's an alternative news site. He said, not only would I do this again, but I do it with great aplomb. So he's proud of what he did. Good for him. He is a warrior for Christ. That's what his shirt said, his gray T-shirt. How many cops need to put their hands on unarmed team in the middle of the day? That video is disturbing. Can you post that to Cities 92.9 so I can be shared? Yes, I will post that here coming up after the show. I just got a couple of more minutes of show left, and I will post that. I'm going to screen record it because that video has been taken down from Twitter. At least one outlet took that down. So yeah, I'm going to screen record it so that way I have it forever. I'll share that with you. Insanity.
Beware lest you be consumed by one another.
Hey, what are you doing?
What is the problem?
I'm on vacation. What's wrong with you? What are you doing? I just think that my hand. You didn't give him any warning. You just grabbed the mic.
Well, this is the same one that we had.
Yeah, that was in there. It was not out here. What is wrong with you? What are you doing? You didn't give us any warning.
Let it go. You guys have been warned.
They say we can they say we can speak out here on the sidewalk freely.
You can speak, but there's no amplified.
Nobody told us that.
What are you doing? Nobody told me that.
How come there's no amplification? Hey, you guys are acting like thugs, man. You're acting like straight up thugs.
Hey, you're honestly, I can't say how angry that video.
Wow. What I just played for you there was an audio going down in a public park in Wisconsin. This young teenager was reading from the Bible in the park near this drag event for children where grown men were dressed as Bratz dolls and they were gyrating in front of children. And wow, just a blatant violation of the First Amendment of the Constitution. Every one of those cops who arrested this young boy, his name is Marcus Schrader, they need to be fired and they need to be sued. The young man was arrested for simply sharing a Bible verse on a public sidewalk. So 2 things. Performers dressed in lingerie, dancing and gyrating in front of young children. They also invited those young children to give them $1 bills. And believe me, folks, that happens in downtown Bloomington. I have a video on my phone that I've kept that proves that happens in Bloomington. There was a young girl, probably about 2, giving a $1 bill to a drag queen in lingerie. So that was going on in Wisconsin. And I want this to be clear. Sexually explicit conduct, both in Illinois and in Wisconsin law, it says sexually explicit conduct in front of minors is illegal. And somehow Marcus was the one who ended up in cuffs. But guess what? He said, you know what? I do it again. I do it again and again and again. And I do it again with great aplomb. And he said, look, the police, if they were trying to set an example with me, it had the opposite effect because more and more people are seeing the severity of what's going on in these public parks and at these drag events and at these drag shows. And more people are feeling called to action to speak the word of God. All right. You guys have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye. I love you.